Chapter 595. The boundary between Lord Wine and Su Yi's territory was mainly a river that came from the border between the Principality of Constantine and the Black Rice Wasteland, finally flowing into the Endless Sea. It was called the Abundant River, which meant a rich river. This abundant river wasn't that wide, but after Su Yi took over this territory, he imitated the Rum River outside Banta City. He widened the abundant river and built a dam near the mouth of the river, making the narrowest part of the river 50 meters wide and the deepest part 20 meters deep. In the beginning, there were many people in the New Flyer who didn't understand why Su Yi wanted to change the abundant river on such a large scale, because he had invested over 500,000 gold coins to change this river. To most people, this wasn't a necessary expense at all. However, today, when Count Wine led 10,000 of his most elite troops to the banks of the abundant river, looking at this incomparably wide and bottomless river, he found that Su Yi's method was just too far-sighted. With this natural barrier, his subordinates couldn't fly over at all, so naturally they couldn't attack New Flyer's territory. 5 days ago, Count Wine received a statement from Su Yi. In the statement, Su Yi rejected Lord Wine's request of not selling military magic machines to the other lords of the Principality of Constantine. He also said that since this territory belonged to him, Count Wine didn't have the right to take it back. As for the businesses of the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce, Count Wine didn't have the right to take them at all. Su Yi's words were very impolite, directly saying that Count Wine's idea was wishful thinking. Seeing this statement, Count Wine flew into a rage. In just 5 days, he gathered 10,000 of his most elite troops to invade Su Yi's territory. To him, the New Flyer only had less than 2,000 guards, and half of them were left on the Black Rice Wasteland. The guards on Su Yi's territory were only around 1,000 guards, so it was impossible for them to stop his army. However, in the beginning, they met the giant obstacle of the abundant river. It was even hard for them to enter Su Yi's territory. Looking at the factories and beautiful houses on the other side of the river, as well as the smooth roads on the land, Count Wine gave a strong snort. There was an uncontrollable look of greed in his eyes. Actually, he already had the idea of swallowing the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce. The great value of the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce was something he knew best, as someone who had been neighbors with the New Flyer for a long time. He was very clear that if he could completely control the New Flyer, then in the Principality of Constantine, he would become the strongest lord, even stronger than Duke Stantine. But before, Count Wine felt that his strength wasn't enough, so even if he was drooling over the New Flyer, he could only endure it. However, after defeating Fran Count and the other lords, Count Wine's strength had increased by several times. His confidence had also increased, and he even believed that he had the strength to easily defeat Duke Stantine. However, when the 4 lords joined forces to counterattack him, it made him realize a problem. The reason why he could easily defeat Count Fran and the other lords was because he had the military magic machines provided by the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. It made the battle strength of his soldiers far surpass that of the other lords, which allowed him to charge forward in a triumphant manner. And the reason why the 4 lords who attacked him made him suffer his first defeat was because their subordinates were also equipped with the military magic machines provided by the New Flyer, allowing both sides to stand on the same starting line. From easily defeating the opponent to being evenly matched, the difference was that they didn't have the military magic machines. Count Wine understood this point better than anyone else. So after careful consideration, Count Wine gave Su Yi the unreasonable request of not allowing the New Flyer to continue selling military magic machines to the other lords in the Principality of Constantine. Count Wine didn't expect Su Yi to agree, or rather he hoped that Su Yi wouldn't agree. Because this way, he would have enough excuse to attack the New Flyer and swallow the New Flyer. As long as he could control the New Flyer, he would have the advantage in equipment and could easily defeat all the other lords in the duchy. He would occupy the Principality of Constantine and become the next Duke Stantine. He even had the confidence to fight his way out of the Principality of Constantine and defeat all the countries on the continent, becoming the new overlord of the continent. But before realizing this grand goal, he had to solve the problem in front of him. Where's the ship? Is it not here yet? Count Wine impatiently asked his confidant beside him. He and his 10,000 subordinates had been waiting by the abundant river for an entire morning. They were waiting for the ships from other places to transport their soldiers across this damn river. We've already gathered some ships, but there aren't many. I'm afraid there's no way to transport all of us at once. The confidant replied with an awkward look. My lord, why don't we try to cross the bridge directly? Count Wine looked in the direction of his confidant's finger. His eyes fell on a wide bridge that spanned the abundant river not too far from here. With just one look, Count Wine's face sunk. He slapped his confidant's head and angrily scolded, Are you an idiot? Don't you see the row of magic bazookas and magic repeating crossbows on the other side of the bridge? If we charge over like this, do you believe that we won't be able to cross the bridge even if we all die? The confidant rubbed his head and muttered, It can't be that exaggerated, right? It's not like we haven't used the magic bazookas and magic repeating crossbows before. They aren't so strong that we can't deal with them. Nonsense, the magic bazookas and magic repeating crossbows we're using are all provided by New Flyer. They definitely wouldn't give us the best. I'm certain that the magic bazookas and magic repeating crossbows they use are much stronger than ours. Count Wine continued reprimanding him. Then again, the losses from charging across the bridge are too big. If we go across the river, we can minimize the losses. In the end, they have too few people, right? Do you understand? The confidant nodded. I understand. Sir Lord really is wise. Count Wine gave a cold snort and turned to look at the other side of the river with knitted brows. Although he made it sound easy, he knew that even if he had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, they would still suffer heavy losses if they wanted to break through the abundant river. But as long as they could control New Flyer in the end, then they could bear any losses. After all, these subordinates were just commoners that were forcefully recruited from the territory. If they died, they could just recruit more. As long as they had enough power, they could conquer a bigger territory and have more people. A mere 10,000 people was nothing much. Sir Lord, someone is flying over. The confidant on the side suddenly raised his hand and pointed at the distant sky. Flying over? Count Wine was taken aback. He looked up and saw a person flying over at high speed. After a moment, he had already crossed the wide abundant river and landed in front of Count Wine's army. When the person landed, Count Wine took a closer look and froze again. This person was actually Su Yi. Sir Lord, can you come out and talk to me? Su Yi's gaze shot towards Count Wine's direction until it landed on Count Wine's face. Seeing the faint smile on Su Yi's face, Count Wine's heart skipped a beat and his expression changed. He suddenly realized that he had overlooked a very important issue. When calculating the battle strength of the New Flyer, he had only included the guards of the New Flyer, but he had completely ignored a very important factor that could be decisive in a traditional battle on the signs. That was the existence of magicians. Because the Principality of Constantine was small and the average quality of the population was low, there weren't many magicians in the duchy, and there wasn't a single great magician. Even if Lord Wine had many soldiers and their strength far surpassed before, there wasn't a single magician in his army. This was because all the magicians in the Principality of Constantine had been recruited by Duke Stantine, and Duke Stantine didn't allow other lords to recruit magicians. Now that he saw Su Yi fly over the river, Count Wine immediately thought of this serious problem. Compared to him who didn't have any magicians, New Flyer had a large number of magicians. Not mentioning anything else, just the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce had a total of 463 magicians. The lowest was a 4th-grade magician, and there were 117 of them that were 6th-grade magicians or higher. There was no need to mention that new flyer also had a super heavyweight existence, which was Great Magician Camilla. Thinking of the 1,000 magicians in New Flyer that were 3rd grade and below in charge of the Magic Machine Corps, it was certain that in terms of magicians, not only did New Flyer far surpass Count Wine, they even surpassed the entire Principality of Constantine. Even this young Frestec Chamber of Commerce's chairman Su Yi, who looked harmless with a sunny smile, was actually a powerful 9th-grade magician. Chapter 596. Count Wine's face sunk. After thinking for a bit, he rode his horse forward and looked down at Su Yi as he said in a deep voice, "What? Chairman Su, are you afraid after seeing my army? Are you willing to accept my conditions?" Su Yi revealed a faint smile and shook his head as he said, "No, I'm just here to advise Sir Count. Our cooperation was very happy before, so there was no need for you to destroy our good relationship. If you withdraw your army now, I can treat it as if nothing happened and we can happily continue our cooperation." Humph! Count Wine gave a strong snort. "Happily continue our cooperation? In order to obtain the military magic machines from your company, I have already given the most important resources in my territory to your new flyer. If we continue our cooperation, are you planning on swallowing all of my territory?" Su Yi looked at Count Wine in surprise, thinking that this lord's counterattack was quite good. He was clearly too greedy, wanting to swallow the new flyer, but now he was saying that the new flyer wanted to swallow his territory. Of course. To be honest, it wasn't that Su Yi didn't have this idea. "Lord, I am a merchant, so our cooperation is a normal business cooperation. You provide our company with enough gold coins or the resources we need, so naturally we will provide you with the military magic machines you need. No matter what, in the process of defeating Count Fran and the other lords, our new flyer has helped you a lot, right?" Count Wine gave a cold snort, but he didn't deny it. This was a fact that everyone knew, so if he denied it, he would be too shameless. "That's enough. Don't try to argue with me. I'll only ask you one question. Are you willing to agree to my request from before?" Count Wine asked in a cold voice. Su Yi slowly shook his head. "Sir Count, I've said it before, I am a merchant. To a merchant, business is the fairest transaction. If you force a difference in treatment, it goes against the principles of being a merchant, so forgive me for not agreeing." Count Wine gave another cold snort. "You dare say that you don't treat people differently? Forget about the others. When you provide the military magic machines to Her Highness Seveni of the Lampari Kingdom, you are very different from others." Su Yi gave a shrug. "I think that Sir Count should know that Her Highness Seveni is different from others. The most important thing is that she is my friend." "Friend?" Count Wine gave a laugh. "This is simply laughable. You actually want to be friends with Her Majesty the Queen? Huh." Su Yi couldn't help rolling his eyes. Although he felt that once Seveni became the most respected queen of the Lampari Kingdom, it would be hard for the two of them to maintain the pure friendship from before, but when these words came from Count Wine's mouth, it was just too grating. "All right, Sir Count, it seems like you won't be retreating today?" Su Yi asked. "Nonsense." Count Wine raised the sword in his hand and pointed it at Su Yi. "Since I've already led an army here, why aren't you obediently surrendering? Let me tell you, if you're willing to surrender, I can give you a suitable position. If you're not willing—" Hey, don't blame me for being impolite." Su Yi looked at the 10,000 subordinates behind Count Wine. They were all in different formations and their clothes were all over the place, looking like a mixed army. With a smile, he spread his hands and said, "Since Sir Count isn't willing to retreat and I'm also not willing to retreat, then Sir Count, let's meet again after the battle. That is on the premise that you're still alive when the time comes." Count Wine's expression changed and he shouted, "Since you're here, you want to leave? Keep him here for me." With Count Wine's order, The 500 archers behind him raised the magic crossbows in their hands and pressed the buttons on the magic crossbows. So. Countless arrows pierced through the air, and the sky in front of Su-yi was filled with arrows in the blink of an eye. It looked like the sky was blotted out and the ground was covered in arrows. The momentum was extremely shocking. Seeing that the arrows were actually mixed with the lights that represented magic formations, Su-yi couldn't help but chuckle. Count Wine actually used a magic arrow that cost 3 gold coins just to deal with him. He really thought highly of him. This rain of arrows that blotted out the sky and covered the earth probably cost close to 1,000 gold coins. No wonder Count Wine always complained to Su-yi that war was too expensive and that New Flyer's military magic machines were too expensive. With how he used them, it would be strange if he didn't spend a lot. Seeing that the rain of arrows covered the sky above him, Su-yi raised his hand and a light blue magic barrier enveloped him completely. The ordinary arrows didn't cause any reaction at all when they hit the magic barrier. They fell powerlessly and slid to the ground outside the barrier. On the other hand, the magic arrows that were much more powerful only caused tiny ripples on the magic shield. Then, the light disappeared, and they fell to the ground like ordinary arrows. In just a breath's time, piles of arrows piled up on the ground around Su-yi, but not a single arrow was able to enter the range of his magic barrier. Count Wine's face darkened when he saw Su-yi's relaxed expression. He thought for a moment and raised his hand to stop the archers from continuing to shoot. According to the data provided by New Flyer, the terrifying power of the magic crossbows alone was enough to defeat an advanced mage. But after all, this was the data provided by New Flyer. Count Wine couldn't be sure if it was adulterated. Moreover, these magic crossbows were developed by New Flyer, so Su-yi as the chairman might have a special method to deal with them. Seeing the other side stop shooting, Su-yi waved his hand at Wine and turned to fly back. Seeing Su-yi's figure in the air, Count Wine forcefully gritted his teeth and resisted the urge to order the archers to shoot him down from the sky. There was no meaning in wasting these things on Su-yi. As long as they successfully attacked Su-yi's territory and took it, no matter how strong Su-yi's magic was, he was only a single person and couldn't affect the situation. Even with the terrifying existence of great magician Camilla, it was impossible to change the situation with just a few people. In this judgment, Count Wine was very confident in himself. However, as soon as this thought appeared in his mind, he suddenly heard the sound of a bowstring being released from the other side of the river. His expression instantly changed. "This is bad. It's a magic trebuchet. Be careful of dodging." Count Wine raised his head and shouted. He saw that in the sky on the other side of the river, a giant fireball was flying through the sky at high speed, falling into the army behind Count Wine. Hong! With a deafening explosion, the fireball exploded in the middle of the army, scattering into countless small fireballs of different sizes. These fireballs hit Count Wine's subordinates and instantly ignited them, turning them into flaming people. Some of the soldiers were even disfigured by the impact of the fireballs, which showed how terrifying the impact of the fireballs was. Just a single fireball was enough to make over 100 soldiers lose their ability to fight. Seeing the chaotic situation behind him, Count Wine was filled with rage. That damn Su-yi, he really did hide the best things. However, no matter how angry he was, it was useless. After the first fireball exploded, there were countless muffled sounds that came from the other side of the river. Each sound made Count Wine's heart skip a beat, while also bringing along a giant fireball. Countless fireballs fell from the sky like meteors into Count Wine's army. Countless giant explosions rang out on both sides of the river. The tens of thousands of soldiers that had been standing behind Count Wine were instantly thrown into chaos by these terrifying fireballs, suffering heavy casualties. "Damn! Charge forward for me! Charge to the bridge! You're not allowed to retreat. Whoever retreats will die." Count Wine pulled out his longsword and cut off the head of one of his subordinates that tried to escape out of fear. He yelled, "The first to reach the other side of the bridge will be rewarded with 500 gold coins." Perhaps because of the stimulation of the high reward, or perhaps because of the fear in their hearts, Count Wine's subordinates didn't care about the formation at this time. They swarmed towards the only bridge that connected to the Abundant River. Many soldiers even jumped into the river and planned to swim to the other side. However, when the first batch of soldiers came onto the bridge, they saw that on the other side of the bridge, there were 3 rows of guards wearing the uniform of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's guards. Each one of them was holding a large cylindrical thing that was aimed at them. They heard a low shout from the New Flyers guards from afar, and then they saw the cylindrical object in the guards' hands emit a faint green magic light. A moment later, countless arrows shot out from the cylindrical object. These arrows were clearly much smaller than ordinary arrows, but their speed was extremely fast. Moreover, the penetrating power of these arrows was extremely strong. The various leather armors and even real armors of Count Wine's subordinates were easily penetrated by these arrows, as if they were made of paper. Some arrows even pierced through the chest of a soldier in front of them and ruthlessly pierced through the chest of another soldier behind. Just one arrow took away the lives of 2 soldiers. Although there weren't many New Flyers guards guarding the bridge, the arrows shot out from the cylindrical object in their hands were incredibly fast. They were also much denser than normal magic repeating crossbows. They were also divided into 3 groups. After the first group used up all the arrows in the cylindrical object, the second group immediately followed up and fired again. By the time the third group was done, the first group of crossbowmen had finished loading and could once again enter the battle without stopping. Thus, from the moment Count Wine's first soldier stepped onto the bridge, the arrows on the other side of the bridge didn't stop at all. Under such a terrifying and dense rain of arrows, Count Wine's subordinates charged onto the bridge in batches, only to fall one after another. In just a moment, the bridge was piled with corpses of soldiers, and the distance they had advanced wasn't even 20 meters. "My lord, should we retreat?" The trusted aide standing beside Count Wine turned to look at him with a face full of fear. Count Wine's expression was uncertain. He wanted to give up, but he was extremely unwilling to do so. The trusted aide could naturally see his hesitation and tried to persuade him. "My lord, we are only retreating temporarily. The New Flyer won't be able to escape our control. Although we can't break in, they won't be able to come out either. As long as we block their way out, they won't be able to resupply in such a small place. They will surrender sooner or later." Count Wine's expression softened. He thought about it and felt that the trusted aide's words made sense. Count Wine raised his head and looked at the calm riverbank, as if they didn't know what was going on. He snorted heavily and waved his hand. "Retreat!" Chapter 597. They're retreating like this? Seeing Count Wine leading his subordinates away in a panic, the New Flyer guards who were already prepared to fight were all stunned. When they saw Count Wine leading 10,000 subordinates to attack, most of them were very nervous. After all, compared to them, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's defenses were just too weak. Even if they had the Abundant River to help them defend, to use 1,000 people to defend against 10,000 people, in the minds of most people, it was something that was impossible. However, when the battle began, everyone found that the battle was far from what they expected. It was so easy that people didn't dare believe it. From beginning to end, the New Flyer guards just stayed by the river, controlling the large magic trebuchets to throw large-scale flame bombs at the other side while using the new magic repeating crossbows to block the bridge. They didn't do anything else. If it was said that the 200 people in charge of blocking the bridge had contact with Count Wine's subordinates, the other New Flyer guards didn't even see what Count Wine's subordinates looked like. From beginning to end, both sides didn't engage in close combat at all. In the end, the whole battle ended in this situation. Count Wine fled with his subordinates in disgrace. This kind of strange battle, it was rare to see this kind of battle in the history of the signs. Seeing the confused expressions of the company guards, Sue-yi laughed. He thought that even the Frestec Chamber of Commerce guards who had been in contact with the military magic machines the most hadn't broken away from the traditional thinking of the era of cold weapons. As the new flyer developed more and more military magic machines, there would inevitably be a revolutionary change in the war on the signs. If there was anyone who didn't change, they could only be like Count Wine. They could only passively take a beating from beginning to end, even being slaughtered. Actually, this kind of change had already been shown in the Lampari Kingdom's civil war. The reason why Seveni could lead her less than 5,000 guards to easily defeat the army sent by Duke Stag was because Seveni's guards had stayed with her on Su-yi's territory for 4 months. They had trained with the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's guards on various military magic machines, so they had grasped this new method of battle. In the actual battle, with the large amount of military magic machines provided by New Flyer, when Seveni's guards faced the army sent by Duke Stag, it was the same as the battle just now. They completely crushed the enemy. It could be said that in the Lampari Kingdom's civil war, every battle had the same result. This led to the internal battle of the Lampari Kingdom that everyone thought would last a long time to end in less than 3 months with Seveni's complete victory. Su-yi wasn't surprised by this result at all. To him, soldiers equipped with large amounts of military magic machines, when faced with soldiers using normal swords, it was like an adult beating a baby. The normal soldiers who were still in the era of cold weapons couldn't even approach the soldiers equipped with military magic machines before they fell countless times. With this kind of strength comparison, what suspense was there in the battle? The reason why Su-yi rejected Count Wine's unreasonable request was because he had absolute confidence in the strength of the new flyer guards. Not to mention the 10,000 people Count Wine brought, even if he brought all the 30,000 subordinates he had, Su-yi was certain that he wouldn't be able to cross the abundant river at all. Not to mention that in the battle just now, the new flyer didn't even send out a single magician. The only troublesome thing for Su-yi was what he had to face after this. Although Count Wine had recognized the difference in strength between the two sides in this short battle and knew that he couldn't invade the new flyer, he still had the advantage in numbers. It wasn't a problem for the Frestec Chamber of Commerce to defend their territory, but if they wanted to attack Count Wine's territory with just 1,000 guards, they really couldn't make ends meet. Su-yi was certain that Count Wine would use his advantage in numbers to seal off the new flyer. If Count Wine sealed off all the paths to the new flyer, it would cut off all the resources that the new flyer could get, which would cause heavy damage to the new flyer. Although Su-yi wasn't afraid of this situation because he had several other methods to solve this problem, Su-yi definitely wouldn't allow this to happen. This time he decided to fall out with Count Wine. Su-yi wanted to show his fangs to everyone and give them a warning. Heart! Su-yi turned to call out to Heart, who was leading the 500 guards, but didn't participate in the battle at all. Yes, sir. Heart immediately became spirited and replied proudly. Set off. Yes. Heart waved his hand and the 500 guards jumped onto the 30 magic armored vehicles behind them. They charged across the bridge and headed towards Count Wine's army that was still retreating on the other side of the river. ###, Your Highness, it's already done. Is there anything you're not satisfied with? A maid carefully smoothed out the hem of Seveni's dress and 2 other maids brought a large mirror in front of her, completely reflecting Seveni's figure. Seveni in the mirror was dressed up, looking beautiful and dignified. Seveni gave a slight nod. It's done. The maid took the mirror away and another group of maids came over. Each of them had various kinds of beautiful accessories in their hands, carefully putting them on Seveni. Today was the day Her Highness officially ascended to the throne as queen. All the steps and decorations had to be done perfectly, even down to the smallest detail. There was no room for sloppiness. However, Seveni looked at the busy maids around her with nervous looks, and there was a bit of confusion in her eyes. Her attention seemed to have flown to an unknown place. Since the messenger brought back the news that Su-yi wouldn't be attending the coronation ceremony, Seveni suddenly felt like she had lost interest in everything. Even the most important coronation ceremony couldn't make her feel excited at all. She was like a wooden person during these days, just following the arrangements of the old nobles of the royal parliament and participating in all kinds of traditional ceremonies, preparing for the coronation. During all the ceremonies, even if she looked perfect on the surface, she felt a bit tired in her heart and even felt that there was no meaning in what she was doing. Seveni often asked herself what was wrong, but when she was chasing this answer, Su-yi's gentle smile would appear from time to time. Could it be that because Su-yi isn't coming, I feel that there's no meaning in doing this? When this thought appeared in her mind for the first time, Seveni was scared. She never thought that Su-yi coming to the ceremony would be this important to her. Other than royal father, Seveni had never seen another person who had such an important position in her heart. So she was stunned. Just what was going on? There was a series of light footsteps and a small figure charged into Seveni's embrace under the surprised cries of the maids, waking Seveni from her thoughts. Looking down, she found that the little fellow who had charged in was Prince William. "Aunt, you really are beautiful today." Prince William hugged Seveni as he excitedly called out. Seveni revealed a faint smile and patted William's head, as she couldn't help feeling emotional. If one had to say who had an important position in her heart, this Prince William, who wasn't even 5 years old, could also be considered one. Eric had made a big mistake and now he had to pay the price, but Prince William hadn't done anything wrong. Moreover, Lampuri XIII and Eric had died in the past 2 years, so Seveni didn't have many relatives left in the royal family. Her other big brother, Prince Mifam, had stayed in his territory since Lampuri XIII passed away, never being willing to show himself. Now that Seveni was about to ascend the throne, he also refused to attend the ceremony. So the only relative left by Seveni's side was Prince William. Thinking of this, Su-yi's figure suddenly appeared in Seveni's mind. She couldn't help being surprised. Could it be that she had unknowingly treated Su-yi as a relative? When this thought flashed in her mind, Seveni found that it seemed to be true. If she didn't treat Su-yi as a relative, how could she have revealed the shocking secret of Eric poisoning her royal father to Su-yi? It had to be known. Seveni had only told this secret to Su-yi. She hadn't even told His Highness Mifam and her most trusted people. Based on this, in Seveni's heart, Su-yi's position was even higher than her relatives. After all, for Seveni, who was born in the royal family, her so-called relatives were even more terrifying than her enemies. After understanding this, Seveni couldn't help having a bitter smile on her face. No matter what she thought of Su-yi, Su-yi wasn't willing to come to the coronation ceremony that was very important to her. Perhaps in Su-yi's heart, she wasn't that important. Chapter 598. For the people of the Lampari Kingdom, Her Highness Seveni had finally ascended the throne, becoming the 6th queen in the history of the Lampari Kingdom, which was very good news. Although the Lampari Kingdom had been plagued with disasters in the past 2 years, with 2 kings dying and a civil war erupting this year, the final result was good for most people. Her Majesty Seveni had always had a good reputation in the Lampari Kingdom. Now that she had become the most honorable queen, she should bring a happy change to the Lampari Kingdom. Moreover, Her Majesty Seveni had always supported the New Flyer. She had a good relationship with the New Flyer's chairman Su-yi. Now that the Lampari Kingdom was controlled by Her Majesty Seveni, she would definitely let the New Flyer return to the Lampari Kingdom and lead the Lampari Kingdom back to prosperity. However, most people in the Lampari Kingdom didn't know that the New Flyer was actually very busy. Perhaps she wouldn't be able to return to the Lampari Kingdom for now. Although Su-yi had taken 500 guards from the company and used the powerful mobility of the magic armored vehicles to move through Count Wine's territory, destroying several of Count Wine's garrisons, making him lose at least 2,000 subordinates and causing chaos in his territory, 500 people were just too few. For Lord Wine's territory that was over 10,000 square kilometers, it was impossible for just 500 people to take it all. Su-yi had sent out this small squad just to teach Lord Wine a lesson. However, the most important thing was the aftermath of this. On the last day of year 3874, Su-yi didn't stay at home to welcome the new year with Steel and Freya, rather he drove his magic sedan to Lord Wine's territory. His trip this time was to negotiate with Lord Wine. His goal was to stabilize the situation in Lord Wine's territory. Lord Wine's territory falling into chaos wasn't in line with the benefits of the new flyer. Because this would hinder the transportation of resources to the new flyer, and the products that the new flyer wanted to ship out would also be hindered. Before he had enough power to swallow all of Lord Wine's territory, Su-yi wanted to coexist peacefully with Lord Wine. For example, the situation from before was one that Su-yi was very satisfied with, but because of Lord Wine's greed and ambition, it had been destroyed. Now that Su-yi was here to negotiate with Lord Wine, he wanted him to pay the price for his greed and ambition. The magic sedan suddenly jolted and Su-yi was sent flying from his seat, almost hitting the roof of the magic sedan. Su-yi looked at the situation of the road in front of him and couldn't help knitting his brows. When he was thinking about this, he didn't notice the hole in the road. Now that he looked at it, he found that the road in front of him was filled with holes, looking very miserable. Based on the situation of these potholes, Su-yi guessed that the company's guards led by Hart should have fought with Lord Wine's subordinates here. Judging from the shape and radius of the potholes on the ground, they should have been left behind by the small incendiary bombs fired by the small magic rocket launchers carried by the guard. Based on the density of the marks on the ground, Hart should have met a large group of enemies, so they would fire such a dense amount of small magic bazookas at once. Su-yi carefully avoided the holes on the road while he couldn't help deeply knitting his brows. This road was built by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce over a year. It could be considered the most important road in Count Wine's territory. But now that this part had been destroyed by the battle, it would affect the smooth flow of the entire road. Looking at the sides of the road, he could see several houses that had been burned to ruins. These should be the residences of the locals. It seemed like they had been affected by the battle. It was clear that because of the battle between the new flyer and Count Wine, the lives of the locals had been seriously affected. Seeing all kinds of miserable scenes along the way, Su-yi's expression became more and more gloomy. If he had a choice, of course he hoped that everyone could live in peace. Everyone could focus on studying magic machines, using the convenience brought by magic machines to greatly improve everyone's lives. But because of Lord Wine's greed and ambition, these citizens who had been living peaceful lives were also involved. This really made Su-yi very angry. What made him even angrier was that he had no choice at all. He couldn't agree to Lord Wine's unreasonable request, and he couldn't choose to surrender to Lord Wine. So in the end, the only choice was to start a war with Lord Wine. After the magic sedan passed the destroyed road, it went back onto the smooth road and gradually sped up. In just half an hour, it stopped in front of a manor that was heavily guarded just from the outside. When Su-yi got out of the car, there were over 100 fully armed soldiers that surrounded him. Su-yi looked over these soldiers and said with a cold snort, "Go tell Count Wine that new flyer's chairman Su-yi is here." Su-yi? The soldiers were all surprised. They couldn't help raising the weapons in their hands and pointing them at Su-yi. Everyone stopped. A soldier who seemed to be the leader suddenly shouted out, stopping the soldiers. He looked over Su-yi before hesitantly asking, Chairman Su-yi, what are you here for?" Su-yi gave him a faint smile. "I want to talk to Sir Count, help me report this." The soldiers looked at each other in blank dismay. Now that new flyer was at war with Count Wine, and it was Wine who was being beaten, Sui suddenly came to talk to Count Wine. What did he want to talk about? The leader thought about it before nodding. Please wait a bit. After saying this, he said something to his subordinates before quickly running into the manor. Sui smiled at the nervous soldiers around him. He sat on the hood of the magic sedan and looked very relaxed as he calmly waited. He was certain that Count Wine would definitely agree to negotiate with him. The small team led by Hart was invincible in Count Wine's territory. They had defeated countless Count Wine's subordinates while not injuring a single one of them. Count Wine couldn't do a thing to them, so now that Sui was willing to negotiate, he couldn't ask for anything more. As expected, after a while, there was a person who looked like a housekeeper who ran out of the manor. He looked at Sui with a complicated gaze before respectfully inviting him in. After seeing Count Wine in the main hall of the manor, Sui was surprised to find that Count Wine had lost quite a bit of weight. Sui had known Count Wine for 3 years, and his impression of him was that he had a fat head and oily face. But the current Count Wine was much thinner. Although he wasn't considered slender, he was much more balanced. His face had turned from round to square, making him look much more dignified. Of course, this dignified look was related to his calm-as-water face. Seeing Sui come in with the housekeeper, Count Wine's face sunk even more as he said in a cold voice, "Sui, you really are bold. You actually dare come here alone. Do you believe that I won't kill you?" Sui shook his head with a smile. "No, you don't dare." Count Wine's brows knit as he angrily said, "You actually dare say that I don't dare? Someone, take..." Halfway through his words, it was like Count Wine's throat was blocked by something and he couldn't say anything else. Sui looked at him with a smile, looking calm and unruffled in the midst of chaos. Count Wine stared at Sui with his eyes wide open. After a while, he suddenly deflated like a balloon and sighed deeply as he waved his hand at the housekeeper. After the housekeeper left, Count Wine looked at Sui again, his gaze much calmer. "Chairman Su, are you here to negotiate with me?" Sui smiled. "Sir Count Wine is indeed a wise man." "That's right, I think Sir Count Wine should also understand that this situation isn't good for either of us." Count Wine said in a low voice, "Then what do you want to do?" "Very simple, let's stop the war." Sui spread out his hands. "Since continuing the war isn't beneficial to either of us, we should choose to stop the war." "Do you think we should stop just because you say so?" Count Wine snorted. "Your subordinates have done all kinds of evil in my territory. Do you want to just let it go like this?" Sui shook his head. "Sir Count Wine, I still want to go back and prepare for the new year with my wife and children, so I don't want to waste time on this meaningless war of words. I came this time to ask you to stop the war. What's your answer?" Count Wine was stunned by Sui's blunt words. His face turned red and he wanted to get angry, but when he saw Sui's indifferent expression, he knew that getting angry was meaningless. After thinking about it, Count Wine suppressed his anger and snorted, "Fine, I accept the ceasefire. But Chairman Su, for the losses our territory has suffered during this time, shouldn't you give us some compensation?" Sui shook his head again. "Sir Count Wine, you're mistaken. You should be the one compensating us, not the other way around." "What a joke." Count Wine was furious and stood up. "My subordinates didn't even take a step into your territory. What losses did you have?" Of course, during this period of time, many of the resources that were supposed to be shipped to our Chamber of Commerce have been delayed, and the products that our Chamber of Commerce is shipping out have also been obstructed, causing our Chamber of Commerce to suffer huge losses. "Sir Count Wine, don't you think we should compensate?" "Bullshit." Count Wine couldn't help but curse. "You're just making less money, but what about me? How many people have died? You started this war, so you should bear the losses yourself. It has nothing to do with me," Sui said coldly. "My lord, if you don't want to accept my conditions, then it's very simple. I have many other ways to transport resources in and goods out, but do you have other ways to resist the attacks of the other lords in the duchy?" Count Wine opened his mouth, but he couldn't say anything in the class. After a while, he slumped down in his chair and said to Sue in a dejected manner, "All right, tell me your request." Sue revealed a faint smile. "All right, first I want a bigger piece of land." Chapter 599. Count Wine couldn't raise any objections to Suyi's conditions, because after the two sides started fighting, the new flyers' losses were bearable, and they could find other ways to solve their problems, but he couldn't make up for his losses. Because he had defeated Count Fran and the other lords, he had over 30,000 soldiers under him. Just in terms of soldiers, he was one of the lords in the Principality of Constantine II only to Duke Stantine. And in terms of battle strength, he might even surpass Duke Stantine. But after fighting with the new flyer, he found that he couldn't do anything to the new flyer. It was fine if he couldn't break into Suyi's territory, but he couldn't even completely seal off the new flyer. He couldn't do anything to the new flyer's destruction team. The 500 human guards led by Hart were invincible in Wine's territory. In just half a month, Count Wine lost several thousand elite soldiers as well as many important supply points. If the two sides continued like this, Count Wine believed that he would one day be worn down to death by the 500 new flyer guards. And the most important loss from fighting with the new flyer was that he couldn't obtain any military magic machine supplies from the new flyer. While fighting with the new flyer, the four lords from the south were still attacking Count Wine's new territory. At the beginning, Count Wine could easily block them and even counterattack. But after a few emergency orders, Count Wine found a serious problem. Because of the war with the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, they had lost their supply of military magic machines. Adding in the large consumption from the battle, the military magic machines in his subordinates' hands couldn't last for long. According to his estimations, the supplies in his hands could only last for a week at most. Unlike him, the other four lords had long stockpiled a large number of military magic machine supplies. Every time he thought about losing the military magic machines while the four lords could still use them, Count Wine's heart was filled with a chill. He knew better than any other lord in the Principality of Constantine just how much the military magic machines could increase the fighting strength of his soldiers. Once this happened, his subordinates definitely wouldn't be able to stop the attacks of the four lords. If he couldn't get any more military magic machines, he could only retreat in defeat. Not only would he have to give up all his newly conquered territories, but no, those four lords definitely wouldn't stop. They would definitely continue to attack until he was completely defeated. Count Wine was very clear about this situation, so even if Sue didn't come to negotiate with him, he already had the idea of negotiating with Sue. Although Sue's conditions were excessive, it was undoubtedly much easier to accept compared to the fate of having all his territories taken over by the four lords and then being defeated and killed. Not to mention that when Sue gave these requests, he also gave Count Wine a condition that he never would have thought of, but also one that he dreamed of. As long as Count Wine agreed to Sue's conditions, then the new flyer would prioritize new flyer's Wine as an important partner in the future. They would provide him with all sorts of military magic machines and access to the newest military magic machines that New Flyer had developed. After hearing this condition, Count Wine's anger towards Sue's various conditions instantly dissipated. He didn't think too much and agreed to all of Sue's conditions. Because Sue's so-called important partner meant that when Sue provided military magic machines to all the lords in the Principality of Constantine, he would prioritize Count Wine and put the other lords behind. This meant that Count Wine would once again have an absolute advantage in terms of equipment when facing the other lords. And as long as he had an absolute advantage in terms of military magic machines, the other lords in the Principality of Constantine wouldn't be his match. As long as he could defeat all the other lords in the Principality, what was the point of agreeing to Su Yi's conditions? Thus, Count Wine and Su Yi had a pleasant discussion and confirmed the contents of the ceasefire agreement. According to the terms of the armistice agreement, after both sides stopped, Count Wine would cede close to 600 square kilometers of land to Su Yi as compensation. Moreover, he would have to leave behind all the citizens of this land, which would be ceded completely. After obtaining this territory, Su Yi's private territory would become a very long and narrow strip of land in the north of the Principality of Constantine. This territory was connected to the endless sea to the west, and the Principality of Constantine and the Kingdom of Ruhr to the east. If one looked at it from a map, it would be like a hat covering the Principality of Constantine's head, covering the road to the north from the Principality of Constantine. However, Count Wine didn't really care about this. The Principality of Constantine had always been sealed off due to its geography. It had very little contact with other countries on the signs. Even if the road to the north was completely sealed off, it wouldn't affect Count Wine at all. Moreover, this territory was only given to Su Yi. It still belonged to the Principality of Constantine in name. If the Principality of Constantine wanted to enter the Black Rice Wasteland through the north, Su Yi had no reason to refuse. Then again, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's manpower was limited. It wasn't a problem to defend the previous territory, but to defend this long and narrow territory that didn't have a natural moat to defend, it was impossible. Thus, Count Wine was very relaxed when he signed the ceasefire agreement. From his point of view, even if Su Yi asked him to leave all his citizens behind, it wouldn't be a threat. On the contrary, it might even be a failure. Count Wine knew the situation of the people in his territory very well. All the men in the territory who could be used to fight had now been recruited into the army. Most of the people left were the old, weak, sick women and children. They wouldn't be of any help to improve the combat strength of New Flyer. They would only be a burden. If Su Yi left these useless people behind, it would only increase his burden. When Su Yi left, Count Wine even pretended to tell Su Yi with a heavy expression on his face. He asked Su Yi to treat the people he left behind well. When Su Yi agreed, Count Wine couldn't help but snicker in his heart. Did Su Yi really think that he took advantage of the situation? What a joke. ####. I think Count Wine must think that he took advantage of the situation. Su Yi handed the ceasefire agreement to Kennard. This fellow who only thinks about war definitely didn't think that I didn't want this territory and these people for war. How could a fellow like him understand Sir Chairman's thoughts? Kennard laughed and took the ceasefire agreement. He carefully read it and nodded. Very good, Sir Chairman. This way, your territory can be connected to the Black Rice Wasteland and the Moon Shadow Tribe. Moreover, the easternmost part can be connected to the Kingdom of Ruhr. As long as the Stru Road is completed, our company's products can easily enter the Kingdom of Ruhr and other places on the continent. This isn't the most important thing. Now that the situation in the Lampari Kingdom has changed, the biggest obstacle our company met before no longer exists. There isn't a problem in transporting goods on the continent, and it's much more convenient to go through the Lampari Kingdom. The most important thing in requesting this territory is to connect the Black Rice Wasteland with our current territory. That way it'll be much easier to develop, Su Yi said. Hearing Su Yi mention the situation in the Lampari Kingdom, Kennard looked at Su Yi with a strange expression. After hesitating a bit, he asked, Sir Chairman, why aren't you willing to participate in Her Majesty Seveni's coronation? Our company will definitely have deeper cooperation with the kingdom in the future. Using this chance to deepen our relationship with Her Majesty will be very helpful to us. Su Yi turned to look in the direction of the Lampari Kingdom before slowly shaking his head. Just treat it as me being willful this time. Hearing the complicated emotions in Su Yi's voice, Kennard's expression changed. He looked at Su Yi and revealed a smile. All right, it's rare for Sir Chairman to be willful, so I don't have anything to say. Su Yi patted his shoulder with a smile. All right, I can be willful in this aspect, but I can't be willful in your matters. It's getting late, you should quickly pack up and go back to Anvilmar. Count Aaron must be waiting for you to reunite with him. If I keep you here, Aaron Count will definitely blame me. Kennard shook his head. Sir Father has always supported me staying by your side. Even if I don't go back to celebrate New Year's with him, he won't say anything. The one who really hates Sir Chairman is Sophia. Hearing the name Sophia, Su Yi revealed a bitter smile. Isn't Sophia already engaged? Help me persuade her to just treat me as her fantasy. It's best if she completely forgets about me in the future, that would be better for her. If she could just forget, then things would be much simpler. Kennard softly sighed. Sir Chairman, I understand Sophia's personality very well. She places more importance on the things she cares about than normal people. If she does something surprising because of this, it wouldn't be strange. Su Yi looked at Kennard with a puzzled expression. What does she want to do? Kennard shook his head. I can't guess. I'm just reminding you of this possibility. Su Yi thought for a bit before frowning and shaking his head. Not to mention him, most people in this world could not guess what this little girl was thinking. But no matter how bold Sophia was, what could she really do? Chapter 600. The new year of year 3785 passed very peacefully. The Lampari kingdom that had fallen into chaos because of the civil war was quickly stabilized after Her Majesty Seveni was crowned. In her speech on the first day of the new year, Her Majesty Seveni used a passionate speech to tell everyone about her plans and expectations for the future of the Lampari kingdom. She placed the focus of her speech on developing the magic machine industry, promising that she would use all her strength to develop the magic machine industry in the kingdom and work hard to improve the lives of the kingdom's citizens. As for the specific actions that followed, Her Majesty Seveni fulfilled her promise. The Magic Machine Industry Management Department that was directly led by Her Majesty Seveni first removed the restrictions on the magic machine industry, taking away all the privileges of the 10 companies. Because those 10 companies had been returned to the kingdom after the rebellion was quelled, the kingdom's parliament was now holding a public auction of all the industries of those 10 companies. As long as it was a company that wanted to enter the magic machine industry, they could participate in the auction. Because Her Majesty Seveni had already revealed her intention to develop the magic machine industry and adding in the fact that she had shown support for the development of the magic machine industry when she was still the princess, once the auction was held, countless companies of the kingdom flocked over. They all wanted to use this chance to enter the magic machine industry that was about to become very prosperous. But at this time, the Magic Machine Industry Management Department and the Business Department released a joint announcement that attracted even more people's attention. The content of this announcement was very simple. It was to remove all the restrictions on the new flyer. When this announcement was published in the Lampuri Weekly, it created a stir in the country. Because this announcement meant that the new flyer was likely to return to the Lampari kingdom. Although the new flyer had only been established for less than 5 years, it had left a deep impression on the people of the Lampari kingdom. The appearance of the Frestek Chamber of Commerce not only brought many new and useful magic machines, the more important thing was that with the power of a single company, a small border city like Banta City had become the most prosperous city in the kingdom. Moreover, with the power of the new flyer, the entire Lampari kingdom had undergone a large change. Before, the Lampari kingdom was poor and most people didn't even have enough to eat. But the appearance of the new flyer had brought large amounts of agricultural magic machines. First, it solved the basic food and clothing problem of the Lampari kingdom's people. Then, because of the cooperation with the mysterious elves, they brought in the fertilizer, allowing the Lampari Kingdom's farmland to have a large harvest. The current Lampari Kingdom's harvest couldn't satisfy the needs of its citizens, but there was still a large surplus of grain each year. And in the past 2 years they had the surplus of grain exports to other countries. Before the appearance of the new flyer, the Lampari Kingdom had to take out at least 200,000 gold coins from the kingdom's treasury to buy large amounts of high-priced grain from other countries in order to ensure that there wouldn't be too many deaths each year. With this in and out, the difference was over 400,000 gold coins. Not to mention that because the appearance of the new flyer had led the development of the magic machine industry in the Lampari Kingdom, it had greatly increased the kingdom's finances. There were many projects that needed gold coins in the kingdom that could only be put on hold because they didn't have the money to invest in. This had greatly improved the kingdom's environment. For example, because the appearance of the new flyer had brought the extremely important material of cement, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had built hundreds of large and small roads in the Lampari Kingdom. The total mileage exceeded 10,000 kilometers and connected every city in the Lampari Kingdom with flat roads, making transportation in the Lampari Kingdom extremely convenient. For example, the Armani Chamber of Commerce that cooperated with the new flyer could now use the large magic textile machines provided by the new flyer to quickly and efficiently weave large amounts of clothing. This caused the price of the originally expensive clothing to drop again and again, allowing the majority of the Lampari Kingdom's citizens to be able to afford new clothing that wasn't made by them. Another example was, compared to the other chambers of commerce that cooperated with the new flyer, the changes that the new flyer brought to the Lampari Kingdom's citizens were the greatest. Now, any family that was slightly better off would have at least one or several household magic machines. These household magic machines had greatly changed the living environment of these families. It could even be said that it had turned their lives upside down. Even if these household magic machines weren't all made by the new flyer, and there were other brands of household magic machines, the appearance of these household magic machines was without a doubt brought by the new flyer. Every time they saw the various household magic machines in their homes, the citizens of the Lampari Kingdom would naturally miss the changes that the new flyer brought to their lives. In the past year, because of King Eric and Duke Stag, the new flyer had been forced to leave the Lampari Kingdom. Almost all the citizens of the Lampari Kingdom were filled with anger and sadness because of this. In the past year, because of the problems brought by the 10 companies of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department, everyone's lives had been affected to varying degrees. This made people miss the new flyer even more. So when the Magic Machine Industry Management Department and the Business Department announced that they were removing the restrictions on the new flyer, almost everyone in the Lampari Kingdom couldn't help cheering in their hearts. The new flyer was back. Their lives were going to be better again. Among them, the ones who were the most excited were of course the people of Banta City. So when the Banta Times announced that the new flyer's service center in Banta City was reopening, Banta City was filled with excitement. On the February 6th of year 3785, the day the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's service center opened for business, even if it was heavily guarded, with almost all of Banta City's city guards being sent out. There were even quite a few elite soldiers wearing special armor among them, but the people of Banta City still moved out. Outside Banta City's old city, not far from the Sandy River, they completely surrounded the new Frestec Chamber of Commerce's service center that looked at Banta City's west gate. Everyone was trying their best to squeeze in, trying to personally witness the moment the new flyer's service center reopened. For most people in Banta City, the new flyer was synonymous with a rich life. When the new flyer was in Banta City, everyone in Banta City lived rich and happy lives. But when the new flyer was forced to leave Banta City was covered in a shadow and most people's lives became worse and worse. Now that the new flyer was back, their lives would definitely be better again. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the new flyer's service center was built with the new technology of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. The highest point was over 30 meters from the ground, and it was divided into 7 floors. It was covered in a layer of marble that gave off a dignified and high-class aura when looking at it from afar. The doors finally opened. Seeing Sue walk out, the crowd immediately broke out in a deafening cheer. The sound was so loud that it spread all over Banta City, even creating ripples on the surface of the sandy river in the distance. However, what surprised everyone was that after Sue came out and looked around, he turned around and made an inviting gesture. Everyone was stunned. Today was the opening day of the new Flyers Service Center, so of course the main character was Sue. Why did he make this gesture? However, when everyone saw the figure that came out of the door, they were stunned before erupting in cheers that were even louder than before. "Your Majesty, it seems like you have a higher position in the hearts of these people." Seeing the excited and twisted faces of the crowd, Sue couldn't help saying this in an emotional voice. 70 looked at him. Of course, if my position in their hearts isn't as good, how could I be qualified to be the queen? Sue laughed. 70, I've found that after you became the queen, you're much more domineering compared to before. 70 revealed a faint smile. When she was about to speak, an old man who looked like a minister beside 70 angrily glared at Sue. "Chairman Sue, how dare you call Her Majesty by her name? Don't think that you can be this rude just because Her Majesty thinks highly of you." Sue looked at this old minister in surprise before looking at 70. 70 stuck out her tongue at Sue from where the old minister couldn't see. When she turned back to the old minister, she had already regained the dignity of a queen and shook her head with a faint smile. "This is just Chairman Sue's slip of the tongue, don't mind it." The old minister wanted to say something, but seeing 70 slightly knit her brows, he closed his mouth. Seeing the sharp gaze of the old minister looking at him, Sue gave a bitter laugh in his heart. Whether he was willing or not, whether 70 was willing or not, now that 70 was the queen of the Lampari kingdom, their relationship couldn't be as pure and direct as before. Chapter 601. The opening of the new Flyers Service Center in Banta City meant that the new flyer had officially returned to the Lampari kingdom. Her Majesty 70 had taken time out of her busy schedule after her coronation to personally attend the opening of the service center, which meant that the Lampari kingdom placed importance on the return of the new flyer. According to the agreement between the new flyer and the Lampari kingdom, after the new flyer returned to the Lampari kingdom, the Lampari kingdom would return all the industries that the 10 companies had taken from the new flyer to the new flyer. But when it came to implementation, it was inevitable that some of the Lampari kingdom's network would be mixed into these industries. For example, the Falling Rain Valley was the core base of the new flyer. Although it had been returned to the new flyer, in the Falling Rain Valley, the Lampari kingdom had set up a special administrative department in Banta City that was in charge of managing the administrative matters of the Falling Rain Valley and the surrounding areas. In name, this was to take care of the administrative matters of the Falling Rain Valley and the surrounding companies. It would make it easier for these companies to complete the necessary administrative procedures, saving time and energy. But in reality, this special administrative department had administrative rights over the Falling Rain Valley and the surrounding areas. This meant that whether it was the new flyer or the companies that came with the new flyer from the Black Rice Wasteland, they would also be managed by this administrative department. For the other companies, this change was still acceptable. But for the new flyer, the change was very clear. The Falling Rain Valley was Suyi's private territory, so no matter how the new flyer changed the Falling Rain Valley, they had a large degree of freedom and autonomy in the Falling Rain Valley. But now that this administrative department had been set up, no matter what the new flyer wanted to do, they had to report it to the administrative department for approval. For example, in order to speed up production, Sue decided to build a steel mill in the Falling Rain Valley. But to build this steel mill, It had to be approved by Banta City's land department and a series of other approvals before it could be built. Even if the administrative department and Banta City took special care of the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce's approval process and approved it very quickly, it still took close to a month before it was approved. For Sui, this difference was very serious. Moreover, the approval time couldn't be set, so the new flyer's future plans would be affected to a certain extent. Naturally, their efficiency couldn't be compared to before. But these differences were within Suyi's expectations, so he didn't have any objections. The most important thing was that his mentality was completely different from before. Before he was forced to leave the Lampuri Kingdom, he wanted to help the Lampuri Kingdom develop as quickly as possible, becoming a powerful magic machine industry country as soon as possible. Of course, even if he had had this idea, the Lampari had kingdom, the Lampari kingdom. This was because if the Lampari kingdom became stronger, the magic machine industry would develop even faster on the continent. If the Lampari kingdom became a super country like the Kanla Empire or the Mala Empire, or even the strongest country in the signs, the magic machine industry would definitely develop on the continent. At that time, Suyi's dream of creating a complete magic machine industry on the continent would no longer be just a dream. However, since he was forced out of the Lampari kingdom and found a new foundation in the Principality of Constantine, Suyi's mentality couldn't help changing. For the current Suyi, putting aside his feelings, just from the perspective of the new flyer, the Lampari kingdom was just a normal country on the continent. Compared to other countries, their biggest advantage was that they had a mature market and a magic machine industry. Other than this, in terms of potential, the Lampari kingdom couldn't even compare to the kingdom of Ruhr. Of course, the Lampari kingdom's advantage over other countries quickly became apparent after the new flyer returned. The new flyer's service center in Banta City had only been open for a week, but there were large amounts of orders flying in from all over the Lampari kingdom. The people of the Lampari kingdom hadn't been able to buy new flyers products for close to 2 years. During these 2 years, they had been tortured by the low-quality household magic machines from the 10 companies designated by the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. Now that the new flyer was finally back, it lit up the enthusiasm of everyone in the Lampari kingdom. Hashtag, everyone, please don't be in a rush and line up in order. Don't panic. The salesperson of the service center had a loudspeaker in his hand as he shouted in a hoarse voice, "Everyone, please don't worry. Everyone, please be at ease. Our Chamber of Commerce has already prepared enough goods for today's special sale. I guarantee that everyone will be able to buy what they want. Therefore, please maintain order and pay attention to the elderly and children around you. Don't let them get hurt." The service center's hall was only 1,000 square meters. It could be considered very spacious. However, the spacious hall was already packed with people, and there wasn't even a sliver of space to squeeze in. People raised the gold coins in their hands and ran to the various booths in the hall. Countless people crowded around the sales points under each booth. Everyone's face and eyes revealed different degrees of fanaticism, as if there was an intense holy war going on. That's right, for these people who were filled with desire for Xinfei's magic machines, today was the day of the holy war. 3 days ago, the new flyer had published an advertisement in the Banta Times. In order to celebrate the return of the new flyer to Banta City, they would be holding a special sale at the new flyer's service center. In this special sale, not only would the new flyer display the newest Xinfei brand household magic machines, they would also be selling them at a special price. Take the newest Xinfei brand magic air conditioner for example. The normal price was 32 gold coins, but with today's special sale, the price would drop to 29 gold coins, 99 silver coins, and 99 copper coins. Although many people were doubtful about the price of the new flyer after this special sale, that didn't stop everyone from understanding that at this special sale, the newest Xinfei brand magic air conditioner would be sold for 2 gold coins less than the normal price. Adding in the fact that the other Xinfei brand household magic machines had different discounts, on the day of today's special sale, not only did the people of Banta City flock here, the people of the surrounding cities also came after hearing the news. Even when it was still dark, a large group of people were holding blankets and wearing coats, waiting at the entrance of the service center. When it was 8 in the morning, the service center officially opened for business. In the blink of an eye, it was filled with a wave of people. Compared to the waves of people on the first and second floors, there were much fewer people on the third floor. But this was also relative to the dense crowd on the first and second floors. In fact, this hall that also occupied an area of over 1,000 square meters was also packed with more than 200 people. At a glance, it was also densely packed. They were different from the normal customers downstairs. The people on the third floor were merchants from all over the Lampari Kingdom. With the new flyer returning to the Lampari Kingdom, the ones who were most sensitive to this were these merchants who had a keen sense of smell. When the new flyer was still in the Lampari Kingdom, these merchants had relied on the new flyer to earn quite a bit. Now that the new flyer was finally back, of course they had to come over as soon as possible. Chairman Su, based on how lively it is today, I'm afraid your new flyer will earn quite a bit today, right? A fat merchant said to Su-yi with a wide smile. Your words don't make sense. New flyer won't just earn a lot today, it will earn a lot every day, alright? Don't you think so, Chairman Su? Another merchant also said with a smile. That's enough, new flyer will definitely make money, but according to my understanding of Chairman Su, he doesn't really care about how much money he earns. What he cares about the most is how the people of our kingdom can use Xinfei brand household magic machines to change their lives, right? Yes. How could Chairman Su's goal be as vulgar as ours? Our minds are filled with how to earn more gold coins, while Chairman Su has always been thinking about how to improve people's lives. Otherwise, he wouldn't selflessly transfer those technologies. Don't you think so? Hearing the merchant change the topic to technology transfer, Su-yi revealed a smile. He waved his hand at him and said, No, you're overpraising me. I've always emphasized that I'm a merchant, and I even think that this identity is more important than the identity of a noble. I believe you should be very clear about this idea of mine. The merchants around Su-yi looked at each other and nodded. 2 years ago, when the royal parliament wanted to strip Su-yi of his noble status, Su-yi claimed that compared to his noble status, he valued his merchant status more, which shocked almost everyone. Since then, all the merchants in the Lampari Kingdom had a strong sense of identity with Su-yi. The status of merchants had always been very low in the signs. Now that Su-yi had suddenly appeared and announced that the identity of a merchant was more important than a noble, it undoubtedly gave all the merchants a shot of confidence. Looking at the excited expressions of the surrounding merchants, Su-yi smiled and continued, So, since I've always emphasized that I'm a merchant, then a merchant's primary goal is to make money. You say that I value improving people's lives more, but that's not accurate. We're all merchants, so there's no need to hide it. As a merchant, who doesn't want to make money? The surrounding merchants looked at each other and began to laugh at the same time. Of course, making money and improving people's lives aren't contradictory. I've earned money and people's lives have been improved because of our new flyers products, so there isn't a conflict. Moreover, most of the money our new flyer earns has been invested into developing new products, which allows our company to keep releasing new products. Looking around, Su-yi's expression suddenly became serious. So, when transferring technology to others, I've always emphasized a problem. That is that it isn't hard to obtain the technology, but how to grasp the technology and develop it in depth is the key. If there is a company that can develop products like our new flyer, no matter what technology it is, our company can transfer it. Hearing the meaning in Su-yi's words, The eyes of the surrounding merchants lit up. A merchant hesitated a bit before carefully asking Sui, Chairman Su, then, "Are you willing to transfer the technology for the production magic machines?" Chapter 602. I thought they would be a bit more daring. Sui shook his head with a smile. I was prepared that they would request to transfer the military magic machine technology, but I never thought that they wouldn't even mention it. Kennard raised his head and said with a smile, "Sir Chairman, you're thinking too much. Not to mention transferring the military magic machine technology, even if you gave it to them for free, they wouldn't dare take it. What would they do with it? Are they planning on rebelling? Don't forget, the Lampari Kingdom has just experienced a civil war, so this is a very important matter. If they dare to ask you to transfer the military magic machine technology, do you believe that they won't be taken away by the palace guards tomorrow?" Sui laughed. "So you're saying that I can only wait for, say, Her Majesty the Queen to make this request to me?" "Pretty much." Kennard thought for a bit before slightly knitting his brows. "During the New Year's, when I was still in Anvilmar City, the military already sent people to contact me and mention this matter. Sir Chairman, did no one come to ask for your opinion?" "No, even say, Her Majesty the Queen didn't mention it to me." Sui shook his head. "That's strange. Her Majesty the Queen should have fully experienced the power of the military magic machines during the Civil War, so why wasn't she moved by this technology?" Kennard was a bit puzzled. "I'm sure they were moved. The only reason they haven't mentioned it yet is because they aren't prepared yet." Sui said. "Not prepared? What do they need to prepare?" Kennard was even more puzzled. Sui smiled and thought that there were a lot of preparations that needed to be made. The first was the technical aspect. The military magic machine seemed like a single unit, but to make a complete military magic machine, even if it was relatively simple for the Frestek Chamber of Commerce and the magic repeating crossbow that didn't require much technology, it still wasn't that easy. This was because every single military magic machine was a complete mechanical replacement. The various components required a complete industrial system to support them. Without the support of New Flyer, the Lampari Kingdom would not be able to produce many of the most basic things, even though the magic industry seemed to be developing quite well. For example, steel. Although the 10 companies of the department had obtained quite a bit of household magic machine technology from the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, because the profits from the production magic machines were relatively low, they weren't that interested in them. In addition, Sui had intentionally concealed the information, so the Lampari Kingdom had never possessed the technology and foundation in this area. Although the previous 10 merchant guilds claimed to have grasped the production technology for almost all of the New Flyer's magic machines, they still had to rely on the New Flyer for many aspects of their production. In the past 2 years, even though New Flyer had left the Lampari Kingdom in name because of the ban of the department and the business department, there were many products that kept flowing into the Lampari Kingdom. Large amounts of steel was one of them. The most important of all was the chemical fertilizer that the business department and the magic industry department found a reason not to include in the ban. It could be said that without New Flyer, the Lampari Kingdom's so-called magic machine industry was like a castle in the air, having no meaning at all. Perhaps the Lampari Kingdom was very interested in the military magic machine technology that New Flyer had, but before this, the Lampari Kingdom had to establish their own industrial base first. Looking at it from this angle, those merchants wanting the Frestek Chamber of Commerce to transfer the production magic machine technology to them was actually a very practical idea. Sui wasn't planning on completely dominating the Lampari Kingdom's magic machine industry, not to mention that this was something that was impossible. Even if Seveni had a good relationship with him, the Lampari Kingdom definitely wouldn't allow this to happen. So in a controlled situation, Su-yi decided to give the Lampari Kingdom a part of the production magic machine technology, helping the Lampari Kingdom establish a relatively complete magic machine industry base. At least, they wouldn't need to buy a bunch of necessities from New Flyer just to make a magic repeating crossbow. So when the merchants mentioned that they wanted to transfer the production magic machine technology, Su-yi revealed a hint of loosening his mouth. The merchants could smell this, and they all surrounded him like sharks that had smelled blood. After a simple discussion, Su-yi finally announced to the merchants that he would be transferring the production magic machine technology to them. Specifically speaking, the Ireland Chamber of Commerce that was the most outstanding in the component processing industry was the Ireland Chamber of Commerce. Although they excelled in component processing and there were some parts that weren't as good as New Flyer's, all the production magic machines they used to make components were all bought from New Flyer. If New Flyer cut off their supply of production magic machines, the Ireland Chamber of Commerce would be paralyzed. What Su-yi was planning on transferring to the other companies was the production magic machine technology. The technology in this area wasn't as simple as the production of household magic machines because the main problem wasn't the technology, but the lack of skilled workers. Because the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had a large number of dwarven craftsmen, with the talent of the dwarven craftsmen in casting iron, adding in the fact that these dwarven craftsmen had grown up with the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce didn't have this problem. But if a new company wanted to make production magic machines, other than the hard requirements of the technology, it was hard to solve the problem of skilled workers. Su-yi had clearly explained this problem to the merchants who needed the production magic machine technology, but the only response he got was helplessness. Although the dwarves of the signs weren't as rare as the elves, there were very few dwarven craftsmen who were willing to work for humans. The reason why New Flyer had these dwarven craftsmen working for them was completely a coincidence. If the other companies wanted to imitate them, it was impossible for them to do so. But Su-yi was already prepared for this, and he had given these merchants two solutions. The first solution was to find dwarven craftsmen from the Lampari Kingdom or even other places on the continent and try to recruit them. Su-yi said that he could help with this. Because there were many dwarven craftsmen in New Flyer, having these dwarves persuade their compatriots would increase the chances of them agreeing. But this solution could only solve the problem for a while because the number of dwarves was limited, so it was impossible for them to meet the demand for large amounts of manpower. So Su-yi proposed the second solution, which was the one he strongly recommended. This plan was based on Su-yi's plan from before, but because of the changes in the Lampari Kingdom, he was forced to stop the vocational training school plan. The content of this plan was to create a large number of vocational training schools in the Lampari Kingdom, specially teaching students vocational skills. For example, in the vocational skill school that Su-yi had set up in the Lampari Kingdom, there was a school for milling, a school for turning, and other schools for training. After receiving enough basic vocational training in these schools, they would enter the company for a period of time and they would have enough skilled workers. The most important part of this plan was that it was a system that could be developed for a long time. As time passed, groups of skilled workers would appear and the skills of these workers would also increase over time. After maintaining this system for a while, the Lampari Kingdom would have enough human resources. They would have the possibility of relying on themselves to produce and develop production magic machines. Of course, if the other companies wanted to try making their own production magic machines, it wasn't impossible. Take the most important machine for producing screw bolts, the small magic thread rolling machine. The fixed price was 800,000 gold coins. Contrary to Su-yi's expectations, although the expressions of all the merchants changed when they heard the price of 800,000 gold coins, in the end, there were still 37 people who wanted to transfer the technology to him. This meant that just by transferring the technology for the small magic thread rolling machine, New Flyer could earn a terrifying profit of over 20 million gold coins. If Sui was willing to transfer all the technology for the production magic machines, this profit would be unimaginable. Of course, this was also impossible. It wasn't a problem to transfer a part of the technology, but if he transferred it all, it was equal to breaking his own hands and feet. Sui naturally wouldn't do something this stupid. Shaking his head to throw away these unrealistic thoughts, Sui looked at Kennard, who was buried in a pile of documents, and Seabass, who was calculating on the side. "How is it? How was your harvest today?" Seabass looked up with a red glow on his face and an excited look on his face. "Sir Chairman, up to now, in just an hour, we've already received 7,393 orders for magic air conditioners, 8,349 orders for magic refrigerators, 23,235 orders for magic stoves, 15,978 orders for magic kettles, and 48,323 orders for magic lamps. Tell me the total." Sui waved his hand and cut him off. Seabass paused and looked down. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva before replying, "Sir Chairman, just this morning, we've already earned over 1,000,000 gold coins." Even if they were already prepared for this number, when they heard it, Kennard and the other New Flyer staff couldn't help taking a gasp. For most companies in the Lampari Kingdom, if they could earn over 1,000,000 gold coins a year, they could already be considered a large company. But now the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had used just a single morning to achieve this kind of sales. Even if, because of the special price, the overall profit had decreased, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's products always had a high profit margin. So of this 1,000,000 gold coins in sales, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had a net profit of at least 300,000 gold coins. Earning over 300,000 gold coins in a single morning, what kind of terrifying concept was this? Including Kennard and Seabass, everyone revealed looks of excitement that couldn't be suppressed. Sui revealed a faint smile. Although he was also a bit happy, he wasn't that excited. On Earth, there was a terrifying record of 10 billion in sales in a single day. 10 billion was equal to 100 million gold coins, and the Frestec Chamber of Commerce was still far from this goal. Chapter 603. The Lampari Kingdom's situation gradually stabilized, and under the wise leadership of Her Majesty Seveni, the entire kingdom kept moving forward in a more prosperous direction. The Principality of Constantine's situation was the exact opposite. After signing an armistice with Sui, although Count Wine had lost close to 600 square kilometers of territory, he had also given up a lot of initiative. For example, the factory that he had more control over was now completely controlled by New Flyer. But Sui's promise to him had actually helped him even more. Because New Flyer gave him enough military magic machines, Count Wine had an absolute advantage in equipment in his battles with the other lords. Even if he didn't completely crush them like before, what decided the outcome of the battles between the lords of the Principality of Constantine was who had more military magic machines. Count Wine had the support of New Flyer, so he naturally had an advantage over the other lords. Thus, since the new year, Lord Wine and the alliance of the four lords that repelled him broke out in a series of battles and won a series of victories. Through these victories, Count Wine had used only 3 months to completely crush the resistance of the four lords. Count Wine seized this chance to take most of the territories of the four lords, becoming the strongest lord in the north of the Stantine Duchy. There was no one who could compare to him. At the same time, the southern Principality of Constantine had fallen into chaos. Anklo, who had been steadily expanding the year before, began to expand wildly as soon as they entered the year 3875 of the continental calendar. Because he had the support of New Flyer, Anklo's army was invincible in the southern Principality of Constantine, and no one could stop them. In less than 4 months, He had transformed from a small feudal lord who only owned one city, had a force of 5,000 men, and occupied an area of less than 1,000 square kilometers to a great feudal lord who owned 5 cities, had over 20,000 men, and occupied an area of more than 10,000 square kilometers. In the Principality of Constantine, Anclo and Count Wine had become the most powerful lords in the north and south. Everyone believed that a life-and-death battle would erupt between these two lords. The reason why these two lords were invincible in the kingdom was because they had the support of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. But if they were to start a war, who would emerge victorious? When most people thought of this question, they would immediately have an answer in their hearts. Whoever the Frestec Chamber of Commerce supported the most, they would win. Then who would New Flyer support? Sue didn't have time to consider who he would support in the end. After the new year, he immediately became busy with work and didn't have time to think about other things. After obtaining 600 square kilometers of territory from Count Wine, his private territory had expanded by dozens of times. But if he wanted to fully control this territory, there were too many things that needed to be done. After careful consideration, Sue gave up on the idea of making this new territory the same as his previous one, because to achieve this effect, he would need to invest an astronomical amount of money. With New Flyer's current strength, they couldn't do it for the time being, and there was no need to do so. After obtaining this territory, the first thing Sue did was to count the population. The final statistics showed that there were only 30,000 people in this territory of 600 square kilometers. Moreover, among these 30,000 people, there were less than 1,000 young men between the ages of 16 to 40. In fact, there weren't so few young men in this territory before, but Count Wine had been fighting with other lords for a long time, so all the young men in this territory were transferred away. The fact that there were close to 1,000 people left was already a very good situation. Fortunately, Suyi's current manpower was mainly concentrated on the workers in the factories who were responsible for simple mechanical operations, so he wasn't limited to young men. After counting the population, Suyi gathered all the people who had the ability to work and carried out a unified training. In the end, he picked out a total of 19,000 people to enter the factories under New Flyer's name, taking on the simplest mechanical work in these factories. Although these natives of the Principality of Constantine had always been lazy, under Suyi's mandatory training, they had more or less developed some discipline. In addition, Suyi's identity as a lord had a deterrent effect on them, so they could basically complete their work in the factories obediently. Not to mention that it was different from when they were under Count Wine's name. Although they were forced to work in these factories by Suyi, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce would still give them a corresponding wage and benefit. Even if they could only do simple mechanical work and their wages were a bit lower than other workers, with a minimum of 5 gold coins a month and a series of benefits that they had never thought of before, the citizens of the Stantine Duchy, who had been poor their entire lives, were very happy. Now that these workers' enthusiasm for work was extremely high, their work efficiency also rapidly increased. Because these workers took on large amounts of simple mechanical operations, it freed up the skilled workers in the New Flyer factories, greatly increasing the production capacity of each factory. At the same time, New Flyer invested in a series of new factories in the first few months of the new year. As long as these factories were built and the production lines were put into use, New Flyer's production capacity would definitely soar. According to the plan, in the second half of the year, New Flyer's production capacity would double or even surpass before. Like this, the production capacity problem that always troubled New Flyer would be greatly alleviated. Of course, to completely solve this problem, it wasn't enough to just invest money and manpower. In Suyi's opinion, the best method was to increase the technology. Sir Chairman, look, this is our group's newly developed automatic control magic lathe. Sanchely pointed at the strange-looking machine in front of him with an excited look. Sanchely pointed at the strange machine in front of him. As long as you put the steel plate in and set the processing data ahead of time, it will automatically process the steel plate into the shape you want. After the introduction, Sanchely had 2 workers place a steel plate that was 1 meter and 80 centimeters long, 80 centimeters wide, and 7 millimeters thick into the magic lathe's processing slot. Then he pressed a few buttons on a square that was like a control panel. The magic lathe roared and sent the steel plate into the processing arm of the lathe. Then the steel plate went in and out, moving up and down. After a while, it had already been processed into an irregular trapezoid shape. This steel plate was a very important component for making the medium-sized magic excavator. If they wanted to process this component before, it would take at least 2 skilled workers to operate the magic lathe, and it would take them half an hour to complete. But now the automatic control magic lathe only needed to put in the steel plate and didn't need any other workers. The entire process took less than 5 minutes. Compared to this, the efficiency was without a doubt heaven and earth. Sui looked at the finished steel plate and his heart was filled with shock. Although this automatic control magic lathe looked very simple, its functions were actually this strong. Being able to set the data ahead of time to process the components, this was already the standard of a CNC machine. The machine tool research on Earth had lasted for several decades before the true CNC machine tool appeared because of the development of computer technology. This Sanchely had actually developed something similar to a CNC machine tool without any computer technology on the Science continent. This was simply too great. Sui couldn't help the joy in his heart as he laughed. He patted Sanchely's shoulder with an excited look on his face. When this fellow was picked up from Anvil City, Sui only liked his special ability to program magic, hoping that he would have some results in this area. But he never thought that after Sanchely had been silent for 2 years, he would actually develop this kind of shocking thing. Very good. Sanchely. Great. Sui patted Sanchely's shoulder with a wide smile. This automatic control magic lathe, it can be considered our company's most important invention this year. No, it should be the most important invention in the past few years. Its appearance would even change the entire appearance of the magic machine industry. Sanchely, as the chairman, I am giving you a first-level reward. It's actually a first-level reward. God, a first-level reward. It's been a long time since someone has received a first-level reward, right? It's not that long, it's that no one has received one at all. The surrounding people all revealed shocked looks. Although they knew that the automatic control magic lathe Sanchely had developed this time was very strong, no one thought that Sir Chairman would place such importance on this thing. He would even give Sanchely a first-level reward that no one in New Flyer had ever received before. Sanchely's face was red with excitement and he was so excited that he couldn't speak, he just kept nodding. His heart had always been filled with gratitude towards Sui, as well as a strong sense of guilt. He was grateful because Sui had pulled him out of the lowest valley of his life and realized his dreams. He had given him this kind of relaxed environment that allowed him to do the things he liked to do. He felt guilty because after all this time, he had given Sui very little in return. Now that he saw that Sui was this satisfied with the automatic control magic lathe, and even gave a first-level reward, Sanchely was naturally very excited. He didn't have Sui take back this reward because he was very clear that with Sui's personality, since he had already said it, he definitely wouldn't take it back. The more important thing was that this rare first-level reward was the best proof of his contributions to New Flyer. This would reduce the guilt he felt towards Sui. However, whether it was the surrounding workers or Sanchely, they weren't as excited as Sui. He who had transmigrated from Earth knew better than anyone what this machine represented. If the entire Frestec Chamber of Commerce could be like the factories on Earth, fully automating production, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's production capacity problem would be solved. Although this automatic control magic lathe was just the beginning, as long as it took this first step, he believed that New Flyer would firmly continue down this path. Chapter 604. During this time, Old Man Aphelia's heart had been filled with contradictions. Properly speaking, he was someone born and raised in Banta City. Even if he was working for the New Flyer in the Principality of Constantine, he would still have to return to his roots and return to Banta City for the rest of his life. This idea was a bit impractical when the Lampari kingdom was in chaos, so Old Man Aphalia had always suppressed this idea in his heart. But since Her Majesty Seveni's coronation last year, the Lampuri kingdom's situation became better with each passing day. The news from Banta City also became better with each passing day, so Old Man Aphelia's heart that had been dead once again became lively. He was born in Banta City and had lived in Banta City for close to 50 years, so if he died in another place, he would feel a bit uncomfortable. Now that Banta City's situation was good, the New Flyer and the other companies that had left Banta City had all returned to Banta City. They had reopened various factories and stores in Banta City, making Banta City prosperous bit by bit. It was very likely that it would become as prosperous as before. There were also many jobs in Banta City, so if he went back, it definitely wouldn't be a problem to find a suitable job. Even if the income from this job couldn't compare to working here, it was still his homeland and there were many relatives and friends there. But whether it was his wife, his son Archie, or his daughter-in-law Leia, they all opposed this idea of his. According to his wife, their family had already lived here for several years and had already adapted to living here. Moreover, they liked the relaxed and happy life here very much. Moreover, if they lived here, their family had their own jobs in the New Flyer. Old Man Aphalia and his wife had taken over 100 mu of farmland under the Shinfei farm. Just by farming for the New Flyer each year, they earned a net income of over 300 gold coins. If they returned to Banta City, the two of them didn't have any specialties other than farming. Even if they could easily find a job in Banta City, at most they could find a simple job that wouldn't earn more than 10 gold coins a month. Compared to now, it would be less than 100 gold coins a year. Other than that, Archie and Leia were now skilled workers in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's factories. Archie had worked hard, and had become a second-grade lathe worker and a second-grade mill worker. He was considered a high-level worker in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's bicycle factory, earning a high wage of 23 gold coins a month. Adding in the various bonuses and benefits, his annual income could reach 300 gold coins. Although Leia was a bit worse than him, she was the leader of the household magic machine workshop under New Flyer. Her monthly salary was 20 gold coins a month, and adding in her bonuses, her annual income was over 200 gold coins. If they gave up their current lives and returned to Banta City, even if they could find a good job with their skills and work experience, with even a higher salary, Archie and Leia both believed that instead of earning a higher salary in those unknown small companies, it was better to continue working in New Flyer. Compared to the other companies, New Flyer's prospects were without a doubt the best. Moreover, New Flyer had a very clear promotion system. As long as you were willing to work hard, as you worked longer in New Flyer, your salary would also increase. Moreover, New Flyer had an advantage that the other companies couldn't compare to, which was the various benefits they had. The most simple one was that if you worked in New Flyer until you reached retirement age, you would receive a pension that corresponded to your working age. This pension system, other than New Flyer, there was no other company like it. Then there were the other benefits that people envied. For example, they would receive daily necessities during festivals, they would receive paid vacations each year, and each employee would receive free treatment each year. If it was the same salary, there was no doubt that working in New Flyer was much more advantageous. There were even many New Flyer workers who said in private that even if other companies gave them double the salary, they wouldn't consider changing jobs. Working at the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce was much more comfortable than working at other companies. So based on both practical and long-term plans, Archie and Leia didn't consider leaving New Flyer and returning to Banta City to find work. Old Man Ophelia saw that he couldn't convince them, so he tried to convince them that after New Flyer returned to the Lampari Kingdom, they would definitely build many factories in the Lampari Kingdom and recruit large amounts of workers. But facts mercilessly shattered Old Man Ophelia's fantasies. According to the Lampuri Weekly and the Banta Times, the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce had signed a full cooperation agreement with the Lampuri Kingdom. The Fresteck Chamber of Commerce would be investing in large amounts of magic machine factories in the Lampuri Kingdom. This wasn't surprising at all. What was surprising was that according to the information that was leaked, among the factories that New Flyer and the Lampari Kingdom built, the Lampari Kingdom took the lead. New Flyer only provided technical support and received a share of the profit. As for controlling these factories, New Flyer didn't have any control at all. In other words, whether it was in name or in reality, these companies all belonged to the Lampari Kingdom and weren't that related to New Flyer at all. If one worked in these factories, they would receive the same salary as the Lampari Chamber of Commerce that invested in these factories with New Flyer. It wouldn't be related to New Flyer. Other than these joint ventures, according to the agreement, New Flyer wouldn't build factories in the Lampari Kingdom. So if they returned to the Lampari Kingdom, they could only leave New Flyer no matter what. Because of this news, Old Man Ophelia's final hope of convincing his family was shattered. So Old Man Ophelia's heart was filled with contradictions. He really wanted to return to Banta City. To him, it wasn't that important how much money he earned. Moreover, they had already earned quite a bit of money working for New Flyer over the years. Just him and his wife alone had accumulated more than 500 gold coins over the past few years. Although Archie and Leia had spent quite a bit because they had given birth to a fat kid, they still earned close to 1,000 gold coins with their high salaries and benefits. With this money, even if they returned to Banta City and didn't do anything, it would be enough for them to live happily for the rest of their lives. It had to be known, when they were farming in their hometown, their annual income couldn't even fill their stomachs, but didn't they still live like this? Of course, Old Man Ophelia knew that if he said this at home, his wife wouldn't hesitate to refute him. The past was the past. The present was the present. Now that they were eating well, sleeping well, wearing good clothes, working well, and earning a high income, why did they have to return to Banta City to live a bad life where they couldn't even fill their stomachs? Although they didn't say it, seeing the clear meaning on their faces, Old Man Ophelia was speechless. Everything is good here, but we don't have any family. Old Man Ophelia felt a bit indignant. Although there were many people in Banta City who had moved to the Stantine Duchy with the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce, Old Man Ophelia's family in Banta City only had his wife, son, and daughter-in-law who had come with them. They had made quite a few new friends over the years, but they were different from blood relatives. Even if there were roads and magic cars, it wouldn't take long to return to Banta City, but it was still different from living together. Because it was past the busiest time of the spring harvest, there wasn't much to do in the fields during this time. Old Man Ophelia would go out for a stroll after eating lunch every day. Other than helping with digestion, he didn't want to stay at home and argue with his wife over this matter. It had to be said, after the New Flyer came here for a few years, they had already turned this land that wasn't barren, but was still very messy, into a clean and beautiful place. Under the guidance of Su Yi's beautiful living concept, the elves had worked hard on transforming this land for several years. Now, other than the roads that made it very convenient to travel on Su-Yi's territory, the entire territory was organized in a neat manner without a trace of chaos. Because Su-Yi had set up an environmental health department, he had hired a large number of local residents of the Principality of Constantine to clean up his territory, so his territory was always very clean. As long as anyone came to this territory, they couldn't help giving a sigh. Such a place was simply like the legendary paradise. This was one of the important reasons why his wife, Archie, and Leia were against leaving this place. The living environment here, even if they searched the entire signs, they wouldn't be able to find a better place, so why would they leave this place? Even old man Ophelia agreed with this in his heart, making it very hard for him to make the decision to leave this territory. Looking up at the beautiful and clean environment, old man Ophelia took a deep breath and felt that the air was very charming. This was also the work of the elves, but it was also because of Chairman Su's insistence. It's said that in order to maintain this environment, New Flyer invested over 1 million gold coins in the beginning and invested over 100,000 gold coins each year. Other than New Flyer, there was no other company, or rather there was no lord that would spend this much money on the environment of their territory. The Frestec Chamber of Commerce is a good company and Chairman Su is the best chairman and lord, but there are no relatives here in the end. Ophelia shook his head with a bitter smile. Old man Ophelia shook his head with a bitter smile. If those relatives in Banta City could move here, that would be great. This thought had already appeared in old man Ophelia's mind countless times, but he was very clear that this was just an extravagant hope. So after this idea appeared, he could only helplessly shake his head and give a sigh. However, after he shook his head, he found that there were many medium-sized passenger magic cars quickly driving over. After entering the gates of the Shinfei farm, these medium-sized passenger magic cars slowly came to a stop. A person jumped out of the first magic car. Old man Ophelia looked over and was stunned. It can't be. Chapter 605. The person who jumped out of the magic car was called Torres. He was the eldest son of Ophelia's second uncle. He was 2 years younger than Ophelia, so he was his cousin. The two of them weren't that different in age and lived in close villages. They had played together since they were young, so they were very close. Old man Ophelia had been thinking about the relatives he wanted to live with after returning to Banta City, and he was one of them. Because old man Ophelia had been in the Principality of Constantine for the past few years, the two of them hadn't met much. The last time they met was when they returned to Banta City during the New Year's. Suddenly seeing Torres come here in a magic car, old man Ophelia was first surprised before his heart filled with shock. Could it be that something had happened at home that made Torres suddenly come here? Second uncle's body wasn't good. Could it be that something had happened to the old man? Thinking of this, old man Ophelia quickly moved forward and quickly walked over. However, when they got closer, they found that there was not a trace of sorrow on Torres' face. Instead, he was looking at the surrounding environment with great interest. In the end, he exclaimed repeatedly. It was obvious that he was shocked by the strange, clean, and beautiful environment of this territory. Old man Ophelia was confused. He looked over and found that among the people who got out of the magic car behind Torres, there were several people he was familiar with. They were all villagers from Rafuto village where Torres lived. They had played with old man Ophelia when he was young. These people had the same expression as Torres after getting out of the car, looking around in shock and looking intoxicated. Old man Ophelia was very surprised. Why did all these people come here? Although it was much easier to come here from Banta City, it still took half a day to get here. If there wasn't anything important, why would they come here? Old man Ophelia quickly came to Torres' side and slapped him on the shoulder. Torres was shocked. He turned and saw that it was old man Ophelia, so he excitedly gave him a big hug. He said with a wide smile, Hey, Ophelia, you never thought that I would be here, right? Seeing his reaction, old man Ophelia relaxed. It seemed like nothing bad had happened. After the two hugged, they let go of each other. Old man Ophelia immediately asked, I never thought that you would come. But Torres, what did you suddenly come here for? Could it be that you're looking for me for something? It's not bad to say that I'm looking for you, Torres said with a grin. I'm new here, so I'm not familiar with this place. I just knew that you were here, so of course I wanted you to show me around. Hey, Ophelia, how many years have you been here? Tell me, how is this place? Isn't it much better than Banta City? Old man Ophelia was a little confused by his question. I say. Torres, what are you asking this for? Could it be that you're planning on living? Of course. Torres nodded his head vigorously. Torres, 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 but Torres, 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 but you can be assured, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce has already agreed. They said that they have already prepared residences for us new workers and the conditions are very good, so you don't need to worry about me living in your home. I'm not worried about that. Ophelia waved his hand and frowned as he asked, You mean you want to work here? Yes. Not only me, but Aduca's family, Lopez's family of 3, and Delardo's family will also come. Torres patted Ophelia's old man's shoulder and laughed. How about it? Ophelia, so many old friends are here to accompany you. Are you happy? Old man Ophelia stared at Torres in disbelief. After a while, he stuttered. You're saying that all of their families are coming here to work? This is impossible, right? Why not? Torres glared at Ophelia. What? Don't you welcome us? No. I welcome it. I welcome it very much. I welcome it completely. I can't wait for you to come right now. Right, I have to hurry back and ask Senna to prepare some good dishes. We'll have a good drink at noon. That's not right. You've just arrived. Shouldn't you report first? Has the new flyer been arranged? That's right, how did you come here? Isn't this the magic passenger car? I was just asking. Because of his shock and excitement, old man Ophelia couldn't even speak properly. Seeing old man Ophelia's helpless appearance, Torres gave a laugh before shaking his head. All right, Ophelia, you don't need to worry about it. The new flyer has already arranged everything for us. The person in charge just now said that he would show us around and then arrange a place for us to live, so you don't need to care. Since the new flyer has agreed, they will definitely arrange everything. The new flyer never goes back on their words. Right, I was wondering why they were building some houses, so it was for people like you. Let me tell you, Torres, those new houses are very beautiful, and there are some necessary household magic machines inside, as well as running water. After a while, when the street lights are installed, it will be much more convenient to live there. Moreover, hearing old man Ophelia's introduction, Torres became more and more excited. Although the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's person in charge of recruiting workers had told them about the good environment here, now that he had personally seen the clean and beautiful environment, as well as the introduction of a trustworthy person like Ophelia, he truly believed that the living environment here was as good as the Frestec Chamber of Commerce advertised it to be. Based on old man Ophelia's endless praises, the environment here was probably even better than what was advertised. Thinking of this, Torres's heart was filled with excitement and joy. It was a good thing that when the new flyer recruited workers, he had chosen to give it a try. Now that he was here, he found that the living environment here was much better than Banta City's. As for Banta City's environment, because of the new flyer's work with the City Lord Manor, it was much better than other places in the Lampari Kingdom. Moreover, according to the contract he signed with the new flyer, he would enter the new flyer's shipyard as a magic welder. With his second-grade magic welding skill, once he entered the shipyard, he would receive a minimum wage of 20 gold coins a month. If his performance was good in his first year, his wage would increase to 25 gold coins next year. Although with his magic welding skill that was considered rare right now, he could still find a job with a higher wage in Banta City, but there was no doubt that the new flyer was more attractive than the other companies. Now that he was here, Torres didn't regret his choice at all. If he could live in this beautiful environment, even if his wage was reduced by 10. Alright, 10 gold coins was too much, but even if it was reduced by 5 gold coins, he was definitely willing. Before Old Man Ophelia finished introducing the benefits of this place, the person in charge of the new flyer, who brought Torres and the other newly recruited workers here, was already taking attendance, preparing to count the number of people. Torres patted Old Man Ophelia's shoulder with a wide smile. "I'll find you for a drink tonight." After saying that, he ran all the way into the crowd and lined up according to the rules. Seeing Torres' cautious appearance, Old Man Ophelia couldn't help smiling. This Torres had a lively personality since he was young, and even though he was close to 50, he still didn't fear anything. Now that he was acting like this here, it could be seen that he was very satisfied with this place and placed great importance on becoming a worker of the new flyer. Of course, Old Man Ophelia understood his thoughts very well. Coming here and seeing this beautiful environment, then thinking of the good reputation of the new flyer and the satisfactory wages and benefits, who would be willing to give up this job opportunity? Thinking of how Torres was likely to stay here and live here for a long time, then thinking of how Torres had said that Aduca's family, Lopez's family of 3, and Delardo's family would all be here, Old Man Ophelia felt the dark clouds above his head suddenly scatter and his mood instantly became much better. Seeing Torres get into the magic car again, Old Man Ophelia turned to head home with a smile. Torres said that he would find him for a drink tonight? Hey, this fellow's alcohol tolerance is this bad. He will definitely drink until he can't get up tonight. The magic car headed in the opposite direction of Old Man Ophelia. Old Man Ophelia was returning to his home in the living area, but the magic car was taking Torres and the other newly recruited workers to the factories in the industrial area. He planned on letting them see the environment of the factories, giving them some understanding of the new flyers' industry and their future jobs. Although they had come all the way from Banta City, that didn't mean that they would definitely stay here to work. But after visiting each factory, the 276 newly recruited workers in the 10 medium-sized passenger magic cars were all very satisfied with the environment of these factories. Each factory in the new flyer was very clean and the work was very orderly, looking very natural. When the workers were working, they were like screws in the giant factory, playing their roles very accurately. Compared to the dirty and messy working conditions of the factories under the other companies, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's factory was incomparably formal, and it was unknown how much higher grade it was. Thinking back to the living area that they had seen before, all the workers had gradually made their final choice in their hearts. They had to stay. Chapter 606. The shipyard that Torres wanted to visit was built by the sea, but it was the last place he would visit. When he got out of the magic car, Torres hadn't even walked through the gate of the shipyard when he looked at the sea, and he couldn't help taking a cold breath. On the wide sea, there was a giant ship that was 5 stories tall and was at least 50 meters long that slowly came out of the sea blocked by the shipyard. When such a huge ship came out, it was like a mountain slowly moving on the sea. Even if he was 200 meters away from the ship, Torres could still feel a powerful pressure coming from it. The biggest ship Torres had seen in his life was the magic boat that the Porter Chamber of Commerce used to transport goods. It was around 30 meters long and 5 meters tall. Such a ship was already extremely huge when it was sailing on the sandy river. But if the magic boat was placed beside this ship, it would definitely look very small. Torres swallowed a mouthful of saliva and turned to look at the others. He found that they were all looking at this giant ship in a daze. With a thought in his mind, Torres couldn't help pointing at this giant ship. He looked at the new flyer's manager Basaka, who was leading them on the tour, and asked, "I say, after we enter the shipyard, it can't be that we're responsible for building this kind of large ship, right?" Basaka glanced at Torres with a smile. He was not surprised by his reaction at all. This was already the 5th batch of workers he had brought on a tour. When each batch of workers saw the unfolding wings, large transport magic boat, they would be as shocked as the people in front of them. "Yes, our shipyard is currently focused on building this large transport magic boat. You are a magic welder, right?" After receiving Torres' confirmation, Basaka continued, "There are many places that need magic welding on this large transport magic boat. After a magic welder like you enters the shipyard, you will definitely be put in an important position." Torres licked his lips and looked up at the large transport magic boat, as his heart was filled with pride. For him to be able to participate in the construction of such a colossus, it was simply too amazing. When everyone gradually recovered from the shock brought by the large transport magic boat, Basaka called out to everyone and prepared to lead them into the shipyard to continue their tour. The shipyard was the last factory they needed to visit. After showing these workers around, he was responsible for bringing these new workers to the personnel department of the company to sign an employment contract. Then he would arrange living quarters for them and help them with their living conditions. There were many things to do, so he had to make the best use of his time. But before they could take 2 steps, a pure white magic sedan suddenly came from behind them. After passing by them, this magic sedan suddenly stopped. Torres and the others were still puzzled, but Barbasa's expression suddenly turned serious, and he subconsciously straightened his body. Basaka's body straightened up, and a person. After seeing this person, Barca immediately bowed respectfully, while Torres and the others were in an uproar. "Chairman Suzes, it's Chairman Suzes. S's Tuzes do you test Tuzes? Isas led you to S. Chairman Su, are you here to see us?" "Chairman Su, I'm very satisfied with your place. I will definitely stay." Chairman Su looked over everyone's faces and raised his hands with a faint smile. Everyone stopped and looked at Su, waiting for him to speak. "Everyone, I think that you should all know that Banta City can be considered my second home. Since you came to Banta City, you can be considered my fellow countrymen. As fellow countrymen, since everyone is here, I hope that you can live happily here. If you're satisfied with the environment here and are willing to stay and join our company, I represent New Flyer in welcoming you." Relax, Chairman Su, we will definitely stay. That's right. This place is simply great, I already can't wait to work and live here. Right, it will definitely be comfortable here, I will definitely stay. Everyone wasn't stingy with their praise for the environment and New Flyer, while also praising Su. Su accepted everyone's praise with a faint smile before turning to look at Basaka with a questioning look. Basaka immediately understood and replied in a loud voice, "Sir Chairman, please be assured, I will definitely take care of everything for these guests who have come from afar. I will definitely let them feel assured and comfortable here." Su nodded before turning to Torres's group with a smile. "All right, I hope that all of you can stay and move forward with our New Flyer." After saying this, Su waved his hand, but he didn't get back into the magic sedan. Rather, he jumped out and flew over 200 meters, landing on the deck of the giant transport magic ship. Narvel, who was reading a report on the deck, saw Su land and came over to say, "Sir Chairman, it seems like you place great importance on the workers recruited from Banta City." "Of course." Su gave a slight nod. "Banta City is the place with the best magic machine industry on the continent other than our New Flyer. Most of the workers there have rich experience in making magic machines, so recruiting workers from there is the fastest and most direct way to increase the strength of our company, so naturally I place great importance on it. But Banta City and the Lampari Kingdom also have a great need for skilled workers, right? If you do this. Narvel paused as his expression became a bit strange. Aren't you afraid that Her Majesty Seveni will be unhappy? Sui laughed. I've helped the Lampari Kingdom build 13 magic machine industry vocational training schools, as well as providing many of our company's most outstanding magic machine engineers and skilled workers as instructors. Now that I'm just recruiting a few workers from the Lampari Kingdom, Her Majesty definitely won't have any objections. Then again, these workers are willing to come, I didn't force them. Narvel couldn't help shaking his head. Although Sui didn't force them, he had given such good conditions to recruit people, so how could a normal person be moved? Moreover, no matter who it was, as long as they saw the superior living and working conditions here, who would be able to resist the temptation to stay? He was the owner of the best fishing boat in the Principality of Constantine, so his living conditions were considered good in the Principality, but because of the superior conditions given by the new flyer, he came here to work. How was the sailing this time? Sui asked Narvel. Narvel gave the report in his hand to Sui and nodded with a smile. It's very good. Sir Chairman, the furthest we went was 100 kilometers from the coastline and the sailing was very smooth. Even if we met a storm, the unfolding wings was still strong and there wasn't any danger at all. After saying this, Narvel patted the railing beside him with an emotional look. Actually, the storm this time wasn't small at all. If it was the wooden boats that us fishermen used before, the chances of survival would be very low. But this storm in front of the unfolding wings was like a tickle, it didn't pose any threat at all. Sui laughed. Of course, this unfolding wings is the work of all the researchers, engineers, and workers in our company, gathering the strength of the entire company. If it could be destroyed by a small storm, it would be too disappointing. Narvel gave a strong nod. Yes, Sir Chairman. When I went out to sea before, I was always nervous, not knowing when I would be buried at the bottom of the sea. But as long as I get on this unfolding wings, I feel that the entire sea is like a flat land, there isn't any danger at all. I feel that as long as I control the unfolding wings, I can even reach the depths of the endless sea. Good. Your courage is commendable. Sui patted his shoulder. In the future, when our company forms an exploration fleet, I will definitely let you be the commander of this fleet. Narvel was instantly excited and said loudly, Many thanks for Sir Chairman's trust. I will definitely lead this fleet and explore the endless depths of the sea. Sui smiled and waved his hand. All right, let's leave these words for when the exploration fleet is truly formed. Before that, let's first complete our first long-distance exploration. Narvel chuckled. Reporting to Sir Chairman, the unfolding wings is ready, please give the order to set sail. Sui nodded and said in a deep voice, All right, set sail. Narvel took out a palm-sized magic communicator from his chest and said in a low voice, Everyone prepare, the unfolding wings, set sail. There were several received replies that came from the magic communicator. After a while, the giant ship suddenly trembled and slowly moved out of the harbor, heading into the depths of the endless sea. This unfolding wings had gathered a large number of researchers and mechanical engineers from the company, as well as 5,000 workers. They had invested 2,390,000 gold coins, and it had taken 8 months to finish. This giant magic ship that could sail across the deep sea was finished, which meant that New Flyer had made a major breakthrough in magic machine technology. Although this was just a magic ship, there were countless pieces of technology inside. With such a large magic ship being built, It didn't just mean that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had created a complete magic machine industrial system, it also meant that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had succeeded in building large-scale magic machines. They were a step closer to the high-tech industrial system on Earth, which was Su Yi's dream. So when the unfolding wings left the harbor and headed into the endless sea at a speed of 11 knots, Su Yi stood at the bow of the ship. Looking at the deep red sun on the horizon and the sea breeze with a fishy smell, he felt a strong confidence fill his body. There would be a day when he would recreate the miracle of industrial technology on Earth. Chapter 607. With the new high-power wind magic engine and the support of the large-scale water magic array, the unfolding wings ship could reach a maximum speed of 30 kilometers an hour, which was equal to over 15 knots. Although there was still quite a bit of difference compared to the ships on Earth, the Academy of Magic and the Magic Machine Development Center still had a lot of room to improve on the wind magic engine. Adding in the fact that the fire magic engine had already been developed to a certain degree, it was very likely that it would be developed soon, so the power would be increased even further. The most important thing was that the large water magic array at the bottom of the magic ship that used the water flow to move it, while also reducing the resistance of the water flow, increasing the speed of the magic ship, was still in its initial stage of development. When this magic array was further developed, or if there was an even more useful water magic array, the speed of the magic ship would without a doubt increase again. Su Yi was confident that the magic ship's speed would definitely catch up to the ships on Earth and might even surpass them, because compared to it, the large-scale water magic array that the magic ship used was something that Earth didn't have. Moreover, with the help of this water magic array, the magic ship would be less affected by the current. It would reduce the effects of storms on the sea and increase the safety of the ship while also being very stable. It was just like walking on land, there wouldn't be any bumps at all. The smooth sailing of the unfolding wings ship even made the Captain Narvel feel a bit bored. He was born by the sea and had been fishing with his parents since he was young. He had spent most of his life on the sea and was already used to the dangerous and exciting life on the sea. Now that he was driving the unfolding wings ship that was too calm, he wasn't used to it. Other than him, most of the crew members on the unfolding wings ship came from Great Magician Toluchi's hometown of Karaska Island, so they had all lived on the sea since they were young. Sailing on the unfolding wings ship was completely different from the wooden ships they had been on since they were young. Compared to that, sailing on the unfolding wings ship was just too comfortable. Of course, if one wanted excitement, the new flyer could still provide a choice. The small magic speedboat was a ship that pursued extreme speed. Although it had the support of the water magic array, its main function was to increase speed. It was much worse than the unfolding wings ship in terms of stability. The newly developed small magic speedboat could reach a speed of over 50 kilometers an hour. With how much smaller it was compared to the unfolding wings ship, if it charged across the sea at high speeds, it would even fly into the air when it met a wave. This was countless times more exciting than riding the unfolding wings, so the crew of the new flyer fleet would ride the small magic speedboats to experience this excitement when they had the chance. Great Magician Camilla was very fond of this activity. In his free time, other than racing cars, Great Magician Camilla would ride the small magic speedboats to experience the pleasure of surfing. No matter how one looked at it, he didn't look like an old man who was over 60 years old. Instead, he looked more like a young man who liked to pursue excitement. Every time he thought of Great Magician Camilla's surprising hobby, Su Yi couldn't help muttering in his heart, could it be that after becoming a great magician, not only will one's body become younger because of the stimulation of magic, even one's mind will become younger? But every time he saw Great Magician Toluchi, he would remind Su Yi that Great Magician Camilla was only an exception. The Unfolding Wings ship sailed for over 4 hours and finally reached Karaska Island's harbor before night fell. When they got off the ship, Great Magician Toluchi and Karaska Island's Island Lord Smilton came forward to greet them. Chairman Su, welcome to Karaska Island again. Smilton gave Su-e a large hug with a wide smile. Karaska Island was called the Pirates' Island by people, and Smilton, as the island lord, had the title of Pirate King in the mouths of many people. But when facing Su-e, this rough man was incomparably warm. With the contrast of his laughter and his smile, even the long scar on his face didn't seem that fierce. Su-e returned the hug and said with a smile, "Island Lord Smilton, I'm here to disturb you again." Smilton laughed again. "I welcome Chairman Su's disturbances very much. Everyone on the island also welcomes you. Everyone hopes that Chairman Su can come and disturb us more." Su-e revealed a faint smile. He thought that every time he came to Karaska Island, he would bring many benefits to the people on the island, so of course they would welcome him from top to bottom. After getting in touch with Karaska Island through Great Magician Toluchi, before Su-e even came to Karaska Island for the first time, New Flyer had already sent over 100,000 gold coins worth of daily necessities to Karaska Island. When Su-e came to Karaska Island for the first time, other than bringing over 50,000 gold coins worth of household magic machines, he also did a detailed inspection of the island. In the end, he decided to build 2 factories and a mine here. The 2 factories were a cement processing factory and a small-scale steel mill. As for the mine, it could be considered a pleasant surprise. Although Karaska Island wasn't big, being less than 10 square kilometers in size, there was an iron mine on it. Moreover, it was an open iron mine, so it was very rich in minerals. Su-e had supported Karaska Island before because he wanted to build a good relationship with Great Magician Toluchi, so that he could draw Great Magician Toluchi to New Flyer. But after seeing the iron mine on the island, Su-e immediately changed his position on Karaska Island. He began considering turning Karaska Island into an offshore base for New Flyer. After these 2 factories and the mine were built, with the large amount of iron produced from the mine, as well as the production from the cement processing factory and the small-scale steel mill, Su-e first built a large harbor on Karaska Island. The harbor outside was less than half finished, so it could only hold 3 large magic boats. According to Su-e's plan, this harbor could hold at least 10 large magic boats at the same time. After Su-e greeted Smilton, he turned to Great Magician Toluchi and gave him a magician's bow. "Your Excellency Great Magician, it's already this late, why are you coming out to greet me?" Great Magician Toluchi revealed a faint smile. "You are my chairman now, if I didn't come out to greet you, that would be too rude." Su-e waved his hand. "You're too polite. I've already said it, you are just a special researcher of our Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, you don't need to treat me as the chairman like the other employees of our company." "But I'm still taking your salary, aren't I?" Great Magician Toluchi pointed at the brightly lit Karaska Island behind him with a smile. Great Magician Toluchi pointed at Karaska Island, moreover, not mentioning anything else, "Just based on the changes you've brought to Karaska Island, it's enough for me to be polite to you." Great Magician Toluchi was speaking from the bottom of his heart. He was born on Karaska Island, so he could feel the poverty of Karaska Island. Because this island was far from land, for the signs with their low technology, it was like it was cut off from the rest of the world. Because the land on Karaska Island was barren, the residents of the island lived in poverty. They chose to become pirates because they were forced by their living conditions. Not to mention that the sea transport on the signs wasn't developed at all, so the residents of the island couldn't steal anything even if they became pirates. They could only barely survive. When Su-e began paying attention to Karaska Island, the environment of the island had greatly changed in just 3 short years. The previous Karaska Island only had a few broken houses made of bricks and wood, barely enough for people to live in. They were very limited in their ability to block the wind and rain. After Sue built a cement factory and a small-scale steel mill on the island, while building the pier, he also completely changed the houses of the residents of the island. With the hard work of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce workers that Sue brought, there were many beautiful and sturdy houses built on Karaska Island. There were also various household magic machines sent by New Flyer in these houses, making the lives of the residents of the island several times more convenient than before. Moreover, New Flyer would send people to deliver large amounts of food, oil, salt, and other daily necessities every month, making the residents of the island completely worry-free. Great Magician Toluchi had always wanted to change the lives of the residents of the island, but he had always been powerless. Now that he had personally seen the changes Sue had brought, he was naturally very grateful to Sue in his heart. Moreover, even if he had only joined New Flyer out of gratitude to Sue, after truly participating in the research of magic machines, he found that he was becoming more and more interested in this kind of work. Therefore, Great Magician Toluchi had already approved of Sue in his heart, so he had no qualms about calling him chairman. This time the Unfolding Wings was doing a long-distance cruise. When they arrived at Karaska Island, they also brought this month's daily necessities. After Sue and Great Magician Toluchi greeted each other, he said a few words to Smilton. Smilton waved his hand and the prepared islanders came onto the Unfolding Wings, moving the daily necessities down with the crew of the Unfolding Wings. After all the daily necessities were moved, Sue gave a look to Great Magician Toluchi and Smilton. The three of them came onto the ship and came to another warehouse at the bottom of the Unfolding Wings. After opening the door to the warehouse, Smilton and Great Magician Toluchi looked over and took a deep breath at the same time. Looking over, there were all kinds of military magic machines in the warehouse. Chapter 608. Great Magician Toluchi didn't think much of it, but when Smilton saw the military magic machines, his eyes lit up and he walked over. He first picked up a magic repeating crossbow and looked it over with a look of joy on his face. Then he picked up a small magic bazooka and looked it over for a while before looking back at Sue. "Chairman Sue, are these good things for us?" Sue couldn't help rolling his eyes in his heart. This Smilton was really used to being a pirate. He had sent so many important daily necessities to Karaska Island, but he wasn't this happy. Now that he was giving them weapons, there was no need to guess his excitement, it was clearly written on his face. Of course, Sue still maintained the smile on his face as he gave a gentle nod. "Yes, but it's not for free. Island Lord Smilton, the demand for military magic machines is very large right now and these are all from the large orders I received, so it's impossible for me to give them to you for free." I understand this." Smilton gave a strong nod and said with a laugh, "Chairman Sue, you don't need to say anything else. Our island has already received enough help from your New Flyer. The brothers on the island being able to live such good lives is all because of your help. Actually, you don't need to waste words. If you want us to help you with something, just say it. Although I'm a crude person without much knowledge, I still understand the basic rules." Great Magician Toluchi on the side had a thoughtful look on his face before giving a slight nod. "Chairman Sue, you are a merchant, you definitely can't do business that loses money, and we can't let you do this. Although I have some value as a great magician, I'm very clear that I'm not worth you paying such a large price for me. Since you're helping the island like this, you must have your own plans. Everyone knows this in their hearts." Sue helplessly spread his hands and gave a self-deprecating laugh. "It seems like I'm not suited for acting, I'm too straightforward." Smilton waved his hand and said, "All right, Chairman Sue, let's not talk about this anymore. No matter what you want to do, with the New Flyer's help, everyone is living a good life, so it's only right for us to work for you. This is the most basic rule that everyone knows. Tell me, what do you want us to do? Seeing Great Magician Toluchi's questioning gaze, Sui shook his head with a smile. Relax, Your Excellency Great Magician, I don't plan on making the residents of the island risk their lives for me. As a businessman, I've always felt that this method is very inefficient and can't bring me the greatest benefit. Great Magician Toluchi and Smilton looked at each other with curiosity in their eyes. Then what do you want us to help you with? If it's something else, why did you send these military magic machines? Smilton asked. It's not right to say that I don't need you to take risks. After all, I can't guarantee that there won't be any danger in these places. Sui waved his hand at the two of them, indicating for them to come over. The two of them came over in confusion. Sui took out a map from his chest and spread it out on the floor of the warehouse. Borrowing the light of the magic lamp in the warehouse, the two of them looked down and found that this map was a map. Taking a closer look, he found that most of the map showed the sea, and only a small part of it showed land. These continents were naturally islands. The two of them looked at the coastline on the right side of the map and finally fell onto a marked island. This is our Karaska Island? Smilton pointed at the island and asked in a surprised voice. Why is this shape so strange? What? Island Lord, have you never seen the shape of the island from the sky before? Sui asked with a smile. It is indeed the shape of a flower. Looking at it from the sky, it looks very good. Great Magician Toluchi gave a soft nod. Yes, this is indeed Karaska Island. I used to fly up when I had nothing to do, and this shape is exactly the same as this island. Then he turned to ask Sui, this is a map drawn from the sky, right? The surrounding islands should be the nearby islands. This is a detailed map of the nearby sea area that I had people draw with the magic airship. Your Excellency Great Magician, what do you think? Sui asked back. Great Magician Toluchi looked at the map for a while, and his expression became serious. This kind of detailed map can only be drawn from the sky, and in order to be accurate, one has to stay in the sky. Only the magic airship is suitable. But Chairman Su, why did you have people draw such a detailed map? Smilton also looked at Sui with a trace of excitement in his eyes, as if he had guessed Sui's plan. As expected, Sui smiled and tapped on the map a few times before replying, Your Excellency Great Magician, Island Lord, look. From the Black Rice Wasteland to the coast of the Principality of Constantine, there are a total of 34 large and small islands. There are 6 of them that are even bigger than Karaska Island. However, of these islands, other than Karaska Island, there are only 12 inhabited islands. The other 22 islands are uninhabited. Smilton raised a brow. Chairman Su, you want me to help you steal these islands? Sui revealed a faint smile. Accurately speaking, I want these islands to be under my control. I don't have much interest in the islands themselves. I'm only interested in the various resources on these islands. If Karaska Island has a decent amount of iron ore, then there's a high chance that the other islands have the same amount of resources. Yes, that's true. Smilton nodded. I know that there is an iron ore mine on an island not far from here called Saxon Island. There were people from your Lampari kingdom who went to investigate before, but they felt that it wasn't worth it to transport the iron ore from Saxon Island, so no one cared. I also feel that it's not worth it. Great Magician Toluchi knit his brows. Chairman, if you want to transport the resources from these islands back, I feel that the cost is too high and it isn't suitable. You only have this feeling because the sea transport isn't developed enough. Sui shook his head and pointed at the bottom of his feet. But look at where you are right now. Great Magician Toluchi and Smilton were surprised. Then they remembered that the place they were currently in was the warehouse at the bottom of a giant magic ship. This magic ship called the Unfolding Wings was just too big. Just the warehouse they were in right now could hold the large wooden ship that they remembered from before. With this kind of large magic ship, the amount of cargo it could carry was several times or even several dozen times more than the wooden ships from before. Adding in the fact that there was a lower chance of encountering danger on the sea with this large magic ship, so calculating it, the cost of transporting by sea was much lower than before where they had to risk their lives, so it wasn't worth it. It was no wonder Sue-yi was this confident, it was because of the unfolding wings. Seeing the looks of understanding on the two's faces, Sue-yi revealed a smile. He moved his finger and drew a circle on the map. Actually, compared to the resources on these islands, what I care more about is this sea area. Great Magician Toluchi and Smilton revealed doubtful looks again. This sea area was all seawater, what was there to care about? Right now I can't explain the importance of controlling this sea area to you, you'll only understand when the competition for the sea becomes more intense. Sue-yi said with a faint smile. But no matter what, I need this sea area and it's best if I can control this sea area. Island Lord Smilton, can you do this for me? Smilton looked down at the map and thought for a bit before looking back at the various military magic machines in the warehouse. Finally he looked at the ceiling and floor of the warehouse before saying to Sue-yi with a serious look, other than these military magic machines, give me a few more ships. It's best if there's a large ship like this one and I'll definitely be able to do it. Sue-yi laughed. There's no problem giving you a few ships, but there's no way to give you a large ship like the unfolding wings for now. This ship took all the strength of our Frestec Chamber of Commerce. It took an entire 8 months to finish. The ones we're making are for our company's ocean transport, so we can't give them to you in the short term. Oh. Smilton was a bit disappointed. If we don't have such a large ship, I'm afraid our deterrence on the surface of the sea will be much smaller. Things on the sea are very simple. Whoever has the biggest ship has the loudest voice. If there was a large ship like this, I just needed to drive it over and I could guarantee that all the other ships on the sea would be obedient. Sue-yi patted his shoulder with a smile. You don't need to be too disappointed. I can't give you such a large ship in the short term, but I can give you some smaller ships. It's true that those ships are smaller than the unfolding wings, but compared to your heaviest ships, they are still much bigger. Moreover, I can guarantee that in terms of performance, those ships can't compare to it at all. Smilton's eyes lit up. Really? Chairman Sue, could it be that you're planning on giving me a good ship like the small magic speedboat? Sue-yi laughed. That depends on how much sincerity you can take out. Smilton clenched his fist and forcefully slammed it down on his chest as he said in a deep voice, Chairman Sue, in front of Great Magician Toluchi, I promise you. I, Smilton, will definitely control every inch of this sea for you. Even if a fish wants to swim across this sea, it has to ask me. No, it has to ask for your permission. Chapter 609. The unfolding wings only stayed in Karaska Island for a single night. The next morning, the unfolding wings set sail once again after the large amount of daily necessities and various military magic machines, worth more than 30,000 gold coins, had been shipped off. It sailed for about 80 kilometers to the north of Karaska Island and circled around an island that was even larger than Karaska Island before heading east. This place was already over 200 kilometers away from the coastline, but with the speed of the unfolding wings, they could only see the black line that represented the coastline in the afternoon. Narvel put down the binoculars in his hand and said to Sue-yi beside him with a smile, Sir Chairman, it seems like we should have reached our destination very smoothly. This long-distance coastal test is already half a success. Sue-yi nodded with a faint smile, but he couldn't help looking up at the sky that was becoming a bit dark because it was close to dusk. The goal of this long-distance coastal test, other than testing the unfolding wings' long-distance cruising ability, It was also to increase the experience of the Unfolding Wings Captain Narvel and the crew members on the Unfolding Wings. On the Signs continent that wasn't technologically advanced, when sailing on the sea, one could only rely on one's experience most of the time. They couldn't rely on the high-tech satellite positioning systems on Earth to accurately navigate. The reason why Narvel was this happy when he saw the coastline was because even as a captain who was very familiar with the sea, he didn't have full confidence in leading the Unfolding Wings to their destination. This world's technology was still very far from being able to send out accurate satellites, so Sue-Yi couldn't find fault with Narvel's work at all. Even if he was very helpless in this situation, he still had to sincerely praise Narvel's work ability. It had to be known that even for a captain like Narvel, Sue-Yi had spent quite a bit of time to find him. To have a large amount of crew members that could travel the seas, the new flyer had to slowly train them. Up until now, how is the consumption? Sue-Yi thought about it before asking Narvel this. It's not bad. Narvel replied with a relaxed expression. It's the same as our previous tests. Currently we've consumed around 73 tons of magic crystals. According to the mileage, each kilometer consumes around 150 kilograms of magic crystals. About 150 kilograms? Sue-Yi thought for a moment and nodded. And not bad. This level of loss is completely acceptable. According to the new standard of magic crystals proposed by the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, a kilogram of new flyer refined magic crystals contained 1 exabyte of magic. 1 AI of magic, it was enough for the newest Xinfei brand magic fan to run for 3 days. This Unfolding Wings ship naturally needed several times more power than the magic fan, so for every kilometer it traveled on the sea, it would consume 150 exats of magic. With the cost of refining magic crystals for Xinfei merchants, which was 20 gold coins per ton, 150 kilograms per kilometer would only cost 3 gold coins. To Sue-Yi, this large transport magic ship only cost 3 gold coins per kilometer. It was simply free. If it was placed on Earth, it would simply be a fantasy. Of course, this was because magic crystals could be found everywhere on signs, so they weren't worth much. Normal magic crystals were just like normal stones that people didn't care about. New Flyer had already bought 17 magic crystal mines from various places, but it only cost them less than 1,000,000 gold coins. The cost of refining magic crystals was mainly focused on mining the magic crystal mines. There was almost no investment in other aspects, which was why the cost was so low. Based on this, using the Unfolding Wings magic ship that could carry over 3,000 tons to transport goods, the cost of transport was simply terrifying. But in the past 2 years, with the popularization of the magic machines made by New Flyer and the other companies, people began to pay more attention to the consumption of magic crystals. The price of normal magic crystals on the market didn't change, but the high-quality ones, especially the high-quality ones, had a clear increase in price. Based on this, the people of Signs were gradually beginning to realize the importance of magic crystals. Sue-Yi naturally noticed this, so he wildly bought magic crystal mines in the past 2 years and encouraged Evita to continue researching magic crystal refining technology. This was all to prepare for the energy competition that would happen in the near future. Back to the Unfolding Wings ship, other than the consumption of power, of course there were other aspects of the ship that were damaged. As for the other aspects of the ship, other than the daily necessities of the crew, it was mainly focused on the various details of the cabin. For example, the door of the warehouse suddenly couldn't be opened last night because a screw was loose. Hearing this report, Sue-Yi's face sunk. Who was responsible for installing the screw in the warehouse? Write down the name and give him a second-grade warning when we go back, as well as deducting his bonus for the month. Other than that, the leader in charge of the warehouse is also responsible, so his bonus for the month will also be deducted and he will also be given a third-grade warning. Narvel secretly stuck out his tongue, thinking that Sir Chairman really was strict. It was just a single screw that was loose, and he actually gave such a severe punishment, even the leader in charge had to be punished. But thinking about it, although the unfolding wings ship was big enough and there was room for these mistakes, it was too dangerous on the sea, so the requirements had to be strict. The president did this because he wanted to establish this concept. As someone who would be living on the unfolding wings ship for most of his life, Narvel supported Su Yi's actions very much. Narvel also reported the other small problems that occurred on the unfolding wings ship, and Su Yi also gave the corresponding punishments without any courtesy. With Su Yi's usual style, when the unfolding wings ship returned to the New Flyer harbor, these punishments would definitely be given. Although it was strict, Narvel was certain that the people who were punished would not complain at all. Su Yi had absolute prestige in the New Flyer because he was always fair in handling matters. He would punish anyone who made a mistake, and he would not be stingy with his rewards. All the New Flyer employees discussed in private and agreed that as long as they were willing to work hard in the New Flyer, they would receive great reward. When Narvel was reporting to Su Yi, the unfolding wings ship was still moving at high speed towards the sea. Su Yi listened to Narvel's report while looking at the coastline that was getting closer and closer. He suddenly noticed a black smoke rising high into the sky. Su Yi was shocked as he snatched the binoculars from Narvel's hands and looked at the coastline. Through the binoculars, he could see countless people moving along the coastline, but because it was too far away, he could not see what was happening. Narvel also noticed the movement along the coastline and was about to ask Su Yi when a loud explosion came from the coastline. It was so far away, but the explosion was still very loud, showing how loud it was. This time, not only did Su Yi and Narvel notice it, even the other crew members on the unfolding wings ship were attracted. Everyone looked at the coastline with shock in their eyes. Su Yi put down the binoculars and said to Narvel in a deep voice, "Send down the order to increase the speed to the Black Rice Harbor." Narvel quickly responded and took out the magic communicator, loudly giving the order to increase speed. Moments later, the hull of the unfolding wings trembled slightly. Then, the gigantic hull began to gradually accelerate. Gradually, it went from a constant speed of 30 kilometers per hour to over 40 kilometers per hour. This speed was the unfolding wings ship's limit, and normally, they would not use this speed, because it would greatly increase the power consumption. It could even increase the power consumption to twice the normal speed. Moreover, the pressure on the ship would increase by several times, and it would easily cause uncontrollable losses. But in this situation, they could not care that much. The coastline quickly approached, and Su Yi saw the situation on the coastline through the binoculars, causing his face to sink more and more. This Black Rice port was built on the coast of the Black Rice Wasteland near the Endless Ocean. The purpose was to allow the goods produced by the various factories in the Black Rice Wasteland to be loaded onto ships through this port and then transported to other parts of the continent through the ocean. This harbor was the Black Rice Wasteland's window to the Endless Sea. It was connected to many factories in the Black Rice Wasteland, including New Flyer, so it was very important. Starting from last year, the harbor was only half completed, and New Flyer had already invested over 3 million gold coins in it. Moreover, in order to use this harbor, New Flyer had worked with the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to build a 500-kilometer-long road through the Black Rice Wasteland. Just this road alone, New Flyer had invested close to 1 million gold coins. From this, it could be seen how important this harbor was to Su Yi. However, right now, there were countless people charging into the harbor. They were waving their weapons as they slaughtered their way through the harbor. From time to time, large fireballs would fly in and smash into the harbor, causing the entire harbor to be covered in a sea of fire. Chapter 6:10. Narvel, immediately send reinforcements to the harbor. Su-yi gave the order with a calm face. Narvel left with this order. Su-yi turned to look at the black rice harbor in the sea of flames. His right hand pinched the railing on the deck as a trace of hesitation appeared on his face. These fellows that came out of nowhere to attack the black rice harbor seemed to have several magicians mixed in. Properly speaking, as a 9th-grade magician, he should be participating in the battle against the other side's magicians. But Great Magician Camilla and Steele, as well as the people of the New Flyer, including Kennard and Hines, were all against him participating in the battle. In their eyes, Su-yi was the most important chairman of the New Flyer. Even if he was a powerful 9th-grade magician, he shouldn't personally take the risk. If something happened to him, that would be the biggest hit to the New Flyer. Not to mention that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's guards were equipped with large amounts of military magic machines. Even if they met a great magician like Great Magician Camilla, they could still resist him. There were only a few low-grade magicians in this group, so they shouldn't be a match for them. Thinking of this, Su-yi let go and gave up the idea of personally fighting. He watched as under Narvel's orders, the crew of the Unfolding Wings and the 100 human New Flyer guards jumped onto the small magic speedboats that came down from the Unfolding Wings. They went at a very high speed and charged through the waves, heading towards the Black Rice Harbor. Before the New Flyer guards joined the battle, the Black Rice Harbor was filled with enemies and the Black Rice Harbor couldn't resist at all. But when the New Flyer guards quickly drove the small magic speedboats over, before they even approached the sea, there was already a rain of arrows that covered the entire harbor. This rain of arrows didn't have any blind spots, and they kept coming. The enemies that were wreaking havoc in the harbor couldn't dodge at all. After a while, they fell down like wheat being harvested. When the first small magic speedboat stopped at the pier of the Black Rice Harbor, the enemies in the harbor had already lost their momentum from before and all found cover to avoid them. However, what the enemies never thought was that although they could avoid arrows by hiding behind cover, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's guards took out a black cylinder and aimed it at the cover. With an explosion, an iron ball covered in flames flew out of the cylinder and hit the cover, creating a deafening explosion sound. Not only was the bunker blown up, but the enemy hiding behind it was also blown up into a pile of broken limbs. Su-yi observed for a while and put down the binoculars. The New Flyer guards were equipped with a large number of military magic machines and had a lot of combat experience. In terms of combat strength, they could easily crush any other military force on this continent. Even if there were over 500 enemies that invaded the Black Rice Harbor, in front of 100 fully armed New Flyer guards, they were like 500 helpless children, unable to put up any effective resistance. The only ones who could retaliate were the few mages left. After seeing the terrifying might of the military magic machines in the hands of the company's guards, the magicians quickly took the chance to escape. In short, there wasn't a single spell that was released in the later stages of the battle. In just half an hour, the battle in the Black Rice Harbor had ended and the shouts from the distance gradually stopped. Su-yi waved his hand and ordered the Unfolding Wings ship to approach. When the Unfolding Wings ship entered the Black Rice Harbor, seeing that the harbor was completely dark, Su-yi couldn't help knitting his brows. The Black Rice Harbor hadn't been used yet and it was suddenly destroyed like this. It was fine if it was a financial loss, but the important thing was that this was simply a public provocation. Su-yi's face sunk as he looked over the corpses in the harbor. After seeing it clearly, Su-yi couldn't help being stunned. The corpses of the enemies that were left behind were clearly beastmen. Since the Frestec Chamber of Commerce worked with the other companies to wipe out the beastmen who tried to resist the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, there weren't any beastmen who dared to attack the Frestec Chamber of Commerce in these 2 years. Even the Beastman Independent Legion, that was most opposed to humans and had the most extreme style of doing things, had already disappeared from the Black Rice Wasteland for a long time. Then where did these beastmen come from? Why did they attack the Black Rice Harbor? This harbor hadn't been used yet, so why did these beastmen attack it? Looking at another corpse, Sue couldn't help being stunned. This corpse was clearly wearing the uniform of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. A trace of sorrow flashed in Suyi's eyes, and then an uncontrollable rage filled his heart. He loudly shouted at Narvel, "Go and find the survivors for me." Narvel and Sue had known each other for a long time, but this was the first time he had seen Sue reveal such an angry expression. He was immediately scared, and quickly ordered the crew and guards from the unfolding wings to search the harbor. Luckily, when he was building the harbor, Sue had considered that this was the center of the Black Rice Wasteland, so there would be some risk. Therefore, he had arranged for some hidden fortifications in the harbor. When the enemies attacked, most of the workers and managers in the harbor hid in the hidden fortifications. The beastmen couldn't find them, and most of them survived. But even so, according to the final count, in this sudden attack by the beastmen, there were still 9 workers that died under the blades of the beastmen. Looking at the 9 corpses that were found, Suyi's face was so gloomy that it looked like water was about to drip out. His heart was filled with self-blame. He clearly knew that it was dangerous to build a harbor here, but he still insisted on doing it. He didn't listen to Kennard and Heinz's advice and insisted on building a harbor here. Now, these 9 workers who were in the prime of their lives had died because of this, and it could be said that it had something to do with him. Staring at the corpses of the 9 workers for a while, Sue let out a long breath and his expression returned to normal. These workers were already dead, so there was no point in continuing to regret. Sue didn't like doing this kind of thing. Compared to this, the more important thing was to arrange the funeral arrangements for these workers and to take revenge for them. The person in charge of the Black Rice Harbor also hid in the hidden fortifications to survive. Sue called him over and had him calculate the information of the 9 dead workers. Then he would compensate them according to the rules of the new flyer. "Sir Chairman, there are 5 people who aren't from our company. They are from the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce." The person in charge raised a different opinion. Sue coldly looked at him. "Aren't the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce people? Since they are working for our new flyer, we should treat them equally." But they are after all workers from the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. If we do this, I'm afraid. Listen to my orders. Sue cut him off. As for President Cruz, I will personally negotiate with him. You just need to follow my arrangements and take the compensation measures. Seeing the cold look on Suyi's face, the person in charge couldn't help shrinking his head back, but he immediately nodded in agreement. After taking care of these matters, Sue had people find the corpses of 2 beastmen on the ground. He threw them into the trunk of a medium-sized transport magic car at the Black Rice Harbor before personally driving it to the east of the Black Rice Wasteland. When night fell, Sue drove the medium-sized transport magic car into the Lampari Kingdom's Western Army camp. The 2 Western Army soldiers in charge of guarding the camp stopped the magic car. Sue stuck his head out of the car and said in a cold voice, "I am Sue, please pass on a message for me. Just say that I have an urgent matter to discuss with the commander." The 2 soldiers looked at each other, and one of them immediately turned around and trotted into the camp. New Flyer was the main supplier of equipment and daily necessities to the Western Army, so even the commander had to be polite when he saw Sue. After a while, a vice-general of the Western Army came out. When he saw Sue, he immediately came over with a wide smile. After the 2 greeted each other, the vice-general's eyes fell onto the medium-sized transport magic car behind Sue and his expression became a bit strange. "Chairman Sue, why didn't you drive your beautiful magic sedan this time?" Sue didn't reply. He walked to the trunk and reached out to pull it open, causing the trunk to fall down. The 2 beastmen corpses inside rolled out and hit the ground, creating loud bangs. The vice-general and the soldiers beside him were all shocked. Looking at the corpses on the ground, the vice-general knit his brows. Chairman Su, what is the meaning of this? Su-yi calmly described the attack on the Black Rice Harbor. After the vice-general heard this, his expression became even more strange. After thinking about it, he said in an awkward voice, "This. Chairman Su, your new flyer's harbor being attacked, this doesn't seem related to our Western Army, right? Moreover," the vice-general paused before continuing, "Chairman Su, to be honest, your new flyer's beastmen cleansing operation on the Black Rice Wasteland has offended many beastmen of the Black Rice Wasteland, so it's normal for them to retaliate." Normal? Su-yi gave a cold laugh as he kicked the beastman corpse on the ground. Suffering the retaliation of the beastmen of the Black Rice Wasteland can be considered normal. But suffering the retaliation of the Sack Kingdom's beastmen, do you still think it's normal? How is this possible? The vice-general looked at the two beastmen corpses on the ground with a look of shock before squatting down to carefully look over them. After a while, his expression changed. Chapter 6:11. Su-yi walked out of the Western Army camp and looked back before slightly knitting his brows. The new flyer guards had fought with the beastmen of the Black Rice Wasteland many times in the past 2 years, so they had a good understanding of the beastmen of the Black Rice Wasteland. So they could easily tell that the beastmen that attacked the Black Rice Wasteland didn't belong to any beastmen tribe of the Black Rice Wasteland. The Black Rice Wasteland was bordered by the Principality of Constantine to the south and the Sack Kingdom to the north. There were no beastmen in the Principality of Constantine, so these beastmen could only have come from the Sack Kingdom. There was a strong proof for this, which was that among the people attacking the Black Rice Wasteland, there were actually magicians. Although for Su-yi magicians weren't that rare, for most people on the signs magicians were very rare. Even in the regular army of the Lampari Kingdom, magicians weren't a high-level battle strength. The beastmen weren't that good at magic, so it was even more impossible for them to have magicians. These beastmen that attacked the Black Rice Wasteland not only had complete equipment and clearly trained fighting methods, they even had magicians. Other than the explanation that they were sent by the Sack Kingdom, there was no other possibility. After Su-yi made this inference, he brought the corpses of the two beastmen to the Western Army camp. One was to give the Western Army a warning. The Sack Kingdom had already made a move on the Black Rice Wasteland, so their next step was to invade the Lampari Kingdom through the Black Rice Wasteland. The Western Army was in charge of guarding the Lampari Kingdom's western border, mainly guarding against attacks from the Black Rice Wasteland to the west and the Lampari Kingdom and the Sack Kingdom to the northwest. Now that the Sack Kingdom had made a move on the Black Rice Wasteland, the Western Army should make a move. Second, Su-yi was planning on using this chance to propose a new cooperation plan to the Western Army's commander Varian Lantis. He wanted to strengthen the connection with the Western Army and increase the defenses of the border between the Black Rice Wasteland and the Sack Kingdom through the Western Army, creating a stable environment for the Black Rice Wasteland. It would be beneficial for the new flyer and the other companies that had taken root in the Black Rice Wasteland. However, contrary to Su-yi's expectations, whether it was the warning to Su-yi or the new cooperation plan, Commander Lantis was indifferent, as if he wasn't interested at all. In the meeting with Su-yi just now, although Commander Lantis was very polite to Su-yi, it was clear that his attitude was perfunctory and he wasn't interested at all. Su-yi was at first. Normally speaking, Su-yi's warning was deeply related to the Western Army and the new cooperation plan was very beneficial to the Western Army. If it was before, Commander Lantis would definitely agree to Su-yi's plan and would definitely agree. But this time, even if Su-yi gave many favorable conditions, Commander Lantis didn't show any signs of relenting. No matter what Su-yi said, Commander Lantis used excuses to avoid it. After the meeting was over, Sui had just bid farewell to Commander Lantis when he turned around and suddenly understood something. The problem came from the Lampari Kingdom. After Seveni was crowned as the Lampari Kingdom's queen, with the support of the people and the strength she displayed during the civil war, she obtained the support of all the nobles in the kingdom. In less than half a year, she controlled the entire Lampari Kingdom. Compared to the previous King Eric, Her Majesty Seveni's control over the Lampari Kingdom far surpassed that of the previous King Eric. Sui even believed that as long as Seveni was given a short period of time, she would be able to control the entire Lampari Kingdom. Moreover, because of the civil war that defeated all the opposition forces in the Lampari Kingdom, Seveni's control over the Lampari Kingdom might even surpass Lampuri XIII's. In this situation, Commander Lantis naturally couldn't treat the Western Army as his back garden like before. If something went wrong, Her Majesty wouldn't let him off. According to the strategy of the Lampari Kingdom's army headquarters, the kingdom's main defense forces would be concentrated on the northern border with the Sak Kingdom. The Western Army's main task would be to guard against the harassment of the Beastmen on the Black Rice Wasteland. Because they had the Black Rice Wasteland as a buffer, the Lampari Kingdom's western side wasn't too worried about attacks from the west, so they didn't invest that much in the Western Army. The more important thing was that the Lampari Kingdom's finances didn't have the ability to invest in this side. So for Commander Lantis, the best way to deal with this was to honestly guard the western border and not do anything else. After thinking through these problems, Sui understood why Commander Lantis reacted differently, but he was also a bit helpless. Even if his relationship with Seveni was good, when it came to the national policy of the Lampari Kingdom, it was impossible for Seveni to take special care of him and the new flyer. To put it simply, the Western Army couldn't be relied on. If he wanted to create a peaceful environment for the Black Rice Wasteland, he could only rely on himself. After thinking this through, Sui drove the medium transport magic car and quickly left the Western Army's camp. He quickly headed back to Black Rice City that was less than 200 kilometers away from the Western Army's camp. Another year had passed, and Black Rice City had gradually developed from an embryonic form into a city that was gradually perfecting itself. Not only was the living area, the industrial area, and the business area clear, there were also various infrastructures that were gradually built. When he entered Black Rice City, there were street lamps that lit up the sides of the wide road. The light of the magic lamps scattered in all directions, and with the light of the various rooms in the city, the entire city was lit up. Even if it couldn't compare to the large cities on Earth, it was definitely unique in the signs. There were many people who came to Black Rice City to find work, but when they saw the lights at night, they were deeply attracted. According to the statistics of Black Rice City last time, there were already 186,000 people registered in Black Rice City, and there were at least 50,000 people who weren't registered. A city with close to 250,000 people, even in the Lampari Kingdom, it was definitely one of the top cities. In terms of business prosperity, there wasn't a single city in the Lampari Kingdom that could compare to Black Rice City. Sui drove the magic car from the darkness of the Black Rice Wasteland into the bright lights of Black Rice City. The two Black Rice City guards on duty looked over, but they didn't care that much. There were at least 1,000 transport magic cars that came in and out of Black Rice City each day. There were many even at night, so a trivial medium transport magic car naturally wouldn't attract their attention. However, Sui slowed down the car and looked at the two guards. Based on the insignia on the two guards, he could tell that they were guards from the Armani Chamber of Commerce. Black Rice City was managed by the New Flyer, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, the Armani Chamber of Commerce, and the Rimet Chamber of Commerce, so naturally the defenses were also managed by the four companies. In this regard, the four companies were each in charge of an area of Black Rice City, so this had already become a fixed pattern. Sui didn't have any objections to this pattern before because he didn't care that much about the defenses. But after the matter of the Black Rice Harbor, Sue found that there was a flaw in this pattern. This pattern was fine in a normal situation, but once there was an emergency and it was a situation that required large amounts of defenses, this pattern was very likely to reveal hidden dangers. Sue drove the medium transport magic car to the gate of the Black Rice City Joint Management Council. When he jumped out, the guards at the gate immediately recognized Sue and quickly invited him in. It was impossible for the important leaders of the four companies to stay in Black Rice City for long periods of time to participate in the management. Normally, the people in the Joint Management Council were the representatives of the four companies. New Flyer was without a doubt the boss of the four companies, so Sue position in the Joint Management Council was very high. His sudden visit in the middle of the night caused quite a stir. Not long after, the representatives of the four companies who had basically gone to sleep all rushed over. New Flyer's representative was an old employee who had joined the company when New Flyer was established. When he saw Sue, he saw the serious look on Sue's face and his heart skipped a beat. He had followed Sue for over 5 years, but this was his first time seeing such a serious look on Sir Chairman's face. Could it be that something big had happened? Sue waved his hand at the four representatives and had them sit in front of him. He looked over the four of them and after thinking for a bit he asked, "You've been in the Black Rice Wasteland for quite some time, so I'll ask you a question now and I hope that you can answer truthfully." The four representatives looked at each other with a bit of doubt in their eyes. Chairman Sue was this serious, so this question wouldn't be easy to answer. "Sir Chairman, please ask." After being silent for a bit and seeing that no one answered, the New Flyer's representative spoke up. The representatives of the other three companies finally reacted and quickly said, Right, please ask Chairman Sue. As long as we know, we will definitely answer." "All right." Sue nodded. "Tell me, how many people do we need? Or to be more specific, what kind of defense do we need to be able to control the Black Rice Wasteland? Even if the Sack Kingdom wants to invade the Black Rice Wasteland, can we fight back?" "Ah." The four representatives looked at Sue in shock. Chairman Sue, he actually wanted to fight the Sack Kingdom. Chapter 612. Sir Chairman, I understand your feelings and also feel pain and anger for the workers of the company who died at the harbor, but... Kennard looked at the calm Sue and hesitated a bit before continuing. "Just because of this, blindly increasing the strength of our company's guards, isn't this a bit impulsive?" "Blindly?" Sue turned to look at him. "Why do you feel that this method is blind?" Kennard gave a bitter laugh and spread his hands. "Although this word isn't polite, Sir Chairman, I can't understand why you're suddenly investing over 3 million gold coins in the company's guards and gradually increasing the investment each year. According to your plan, why do you want to invest at least 5 million gold coins each year? If it's just to prevent the company's workers from dying in the future, there are many other methods that we can use that will cost less. I've always said that I am a merchant. But looking at it now, Kennard, you really are from the Emma family, your thoughts as a merchant are much deeper than mine," Sue said with a smile. Kennard knit his brows and said with a sigh, "Sir Chairman, we are only a company. No, for me, the New Flyer is just a tool in my hand." Sue shook his head. "Although the New Flyer has developed to this point and is already the best tool, it is still just a tool. My dream is to change the lives of the people of the signs. This goal won't change. Making money is just to achieve this goal." Seeing the expression on Sue's face, Kennard knew that there was no meaning in continuing to persuade him. He could only give a sigh and stop discussing this. However, no matter what, Kennard couldn't understand Sue's actions. Because several people had died in the Black Rice Harbor, Sue suddenly had the idea of controlling the Black Rice Wasteland. If this idea wasn't that strange, Then Su Yi's idea of fighting back against the Sac Kingdom after controlling the Black Rice Wasteland really shocked Kennard. Even if the New Flyer had developed into a large company and had a strong influence in the surrounding countries, it was still just a company in the end. With the strength of the New Flyer and the more important military magic machines produced by the New Flyer, it wasn't hard to control the Black Rice Wasteland. After all, the beastmen of the Black Rice Wasteland didn't have any organization and their resistance was weak. But if they wanted to fight against the Sac Kingdom, that was just wishful thinking. A country and a chamber of commerce were two completely different concepts. Kennard looked at the side of Su Yi's face, thinking that because the New Flyer could control the situation in the Principality of Constantine, he estimated the New Flyer's abilities and had the misconception that the New Flyer could even fight against the Sac Kingdom? This was a question that Kennard couldn't ask. As the CEO of the New Flyer, he was mainly responsible for the management of the company, but as for the direction of the New Flyer's development, he could only give suggestions and didn't have any authority. Su Yi had absolute control over the New Flyer, so as long as Su Yi made a decision, the others could only listen. This was something that even Kennard couldn't go against. Kennard silently thought for a bit. He had worked with Su Yi for all these years and their ideals were very similar, so how could he just watch him go down the wrong path? After pausing, Kennard said with a serious look, "Sir Chairman, I hope that you can think this through clearly. Our Chamber of Commerce does indeed have enough strength to strengthen our own defensive forces, but there is a limit to our strength. With the current profitability of our Chamber of Commerce, we can at most maintain no more than 5,000 guards of the same level as the current guards. If we exceed this number, our strength may even decline." Su Yi smiled and asked back, "You think that 5,000 people is very little?" Kennard was stunned. "Of course it's very little. Sir Chairman, don't forget, even if it's Count Wine, he still has 30,000 people under him." Su Yi laughed. "Is 30,000 people strong? Don't forget, Count Wine's 30,000 people couldn't even deal with the 100 people led by Hart." Kennard knit his brows. "You can't count it like that. Sir Chairman, there are many reasons why Count Wine couldn't deal with Captain Hart's 100 guards. If it was a direct confrontation, Even if it was a direct confrontation, Count Wine's subordinates couldn't deal with Hart's 100 people." Su Yi waved his hand and interrupted Kennard's words. Kennard was stunned. "How is that possible? That's 30,000 people. How could they not deal with a mere 100 people? That's why you and most of the people on this continent are still stuck in the old ways." Su Yi smiled faintly. "This world is already completely different from the world you're familiar with." Kennard looked at Su Yi strangely. He was the CEO of New Flyer, so his understanding of New Flyer was much deeper than most people on this continent. But even if it was him, he wasn't optimistic about the scene Su Yi described at all. Why was Su Yi this confident? Su Yi smiled and didn't explain much to Kennard. Although Kennard was the CEO of New Flyer, he was mainly in charge of administrative matters. He was still limited in many aspects. His grasp of the overall situation was far inferior to that of the chairman. Of course, it wasn't just Kennard. Almost everyone on the continent was like Kennard. They couldn't understand Su Yi's thoughts at all. They couldn't be blamed because Su Yi used the mechanical engineering knowledge he brought from Earth to bring magic machines that far surpassed their imaginations. This was equal to a large leap in the level of science technology. It would take some time for people's thoughts to catch up to this change. What Su Yi wanted to use was this period of time where there was a gap. The two fell silent at the same time. The magic sedan they were sitting in continued driving through the northern principality of Constantine that used to belong to Count Wine, but was now ceded to Su Yi. This road was part of the Stru Road and was in a half-finished state. There were only 2 lanes open right now and it was far from the 6 lanes that would be finished. When the magic sedan drove down the road, they could see countless workers from the Lampari Kingdom, the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Black Rice Wasteland, the Mirando Duchy, and the Principality of Constantine working on the road. Most of these workers belonged to the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Only a small part of the workers in charge of supervising the project and providing the magic machines belonged to the new flyer. The two companies had been working together for 4 years now, so the workers on both sides were very familiar with each other, so their work efficiency was very high. According to the estimates of the manager of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, who was in charge of the Stru Road, Suyi's old friend manager Riley, by the middle of next year, the Stru Road would be finished. At that time, from the west coast of the Principality of Constantine to the Kingdom of Ruhr's capital, Caracas City, although it was over 1,000 kilometers, there would always be a smooth road connecting it. If one drove a transport magic car that could maintain a speed of over 40 kilometers an hour, it would only take a single day to get there. If one drove the latest model magic sedan that Sue E and Kennard were sitting in, they could maintain a speed of over 60 kilometers an hour, so it would only take around 10 hours. Of course, to complete the Stru Road, the most important part was the cliff between the Principality of Constantine and the Ruhr Duchy. Specifically, it was whether the Stru Road viaduct could be finished. The magic sedan drove the two of them on the road for a bit before entering a lush forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. Entering this forest, it was considered entering the territory controlled by the Moon Shadow tribe. Before the new flyer, no one in the Principality of Constantine dared to enter the Slight Dream Forest because it was very likely that they would suffer the revenge of the Moon Shadow tribe's elves. However, the forest that had existed quietly for thousands of years was now in an uproar. As soon as they entered the forest, they could hear thunderous sounds coming from afar. Looking up, they could even see a towering tree falling crookedly, smashing into the ground, sending broken branches and dust flying into the air. Sir Chairman, if I didn't personally see it, I really wouldn't have believed that the elves would allow humans to create such a large disturbance in their homeland, even allowing humans to cut down their most precious 1,000-year-old trees. Kennard looked at the giant tree that fell in the distance and spoke in an emotional voice. Sue E revealed a faint smile. If the elves want to develop again and integrate into human society, this is a necessary step. That is because Sir Chairman's charm is different from others. The elves have lived with us humans on the signs for thousands of years, but this is their first time trying to integrate with humans, Kennard said. Sui laughed. He didn't know about the other elves, but in the eyes of the elves of the Night Song tribe and the Moon Shadow tribe, there was indeed a strong charm. Otherwise, Elder Elucia and Elder Lysania wouldn't have forced him to marry an elven girl. Thinking of how he was about to see Elder Lysania, Sue couldn't help feeling a headache. He hoped that Elder Lysania would let him go this time and not force him to choose an elven beauty as soon as they met. Chapter 6:13. Elder Lysania didn't seem like she wanted to force Sue to pick elven beauties because she was currently focused on the movements of a giant machine that was 5 meters tall. Her eyes were filled with a thoughtful look from time to time, as if her heart was filled with confusion. But when Sue first saw Elder Lysania, he didn't notice her expression. Rather, when he saw what she was wearing, he almost burst out in laughter. This elegant, noble, mysterious, beautiful, and dignified elder of the Moon Shadow tribe was currently wearing the uniform of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce workers. There was even a bit of dirt on her white and smooth face. If one only looked at her appearance, it was clear that she was a normal worker. However, the elf elder was completely different from ordinary construction workers. Her uniform, which was as straight as a tube, was devoid of any style or beauty. She still exuded an attractive aura, allowing people to easily distinguish her from the crowd. Only her appearance was a bit out of place, so Sue couldn't help laughing. After he couldn't help laughing, Sui turned to look at the giant machine Elder Lasagna was staring at. Seeing the crane in front of the giant machine pick up a 3-meter-thick tree trunk and put it to the side, he felt a bit satisfied. This newly developed medium-sized magic crane had a maximum capacity of 50 tons. Compared to the small magic crane that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was using that could lift less than 10 tons, it was a giant breakthrough. The amount of work involved in the Stru Road project was very large, so the small magic crane couldn't meet the demand most of the time. With the help of this medium-sized magic crane, there was no doubt that the work would be reduced by quite a bit. Moreover, this medium-sized magic crane was just the beginning. After several years of accumulation, the Magic Machine Development Center had already accumulated enough theoretical foundation and experience in developing various magic machines. There would be even higher-grade magic machines that would be developed in the future. With the help of these magic machines, there was hope for the Stru Road project to be completed. Before this, no one thought that they would be able to build a road that would go over a cliff that was over 50 meters tall. But now, the new flyer had made this a reality. Elder Lasagna suddenly turned her head and discovered Su Yi's arrival. Chairman Su, the power of this medium-sized magic crane really isn't bad. It can actually match the power of our clan's ancient war tree. Elder Lasagna said. Ancient war tree? Su Yi was stunned. What is that? That's the most powerful war machine of our race. Its power was unstoppable, and it was an invincible existence on any battlefield. Even a great mage can't pose much of a threat to him, Elder Lasagna said proudly. Su Yi glanced at her. He really wanted to ask her, since the elves had such powerful weapons, why did they lose to the humans and lose control of the continent? Of course, Su Yi wouldn't be so tactless. Oh? The magic crane we developed is actually this strong? Su Yi said with a smile, but Elder Lasagna, this magic crane is not the final product of our company. We will continue developing even stronger construction magic machines in the future. There will be many magic machines that are even stronger than this magic crane. Elder Lasagna looked at Su Yi and fell into thought. But contrary to Su Yi's expectations, she didn't refute Su Yi's words at all. Rather, she gave a nod and said with a sigh, I believe that Chairman Su can do this. You have already created many miracles, so I won't be surprised no matter what you do. Su Yi was a bit surprised. With Elder Lasagna's strong personality, there must be a reason why she was this obedient to him. It can't be that she wanted to use this kind of attitude to lure him into accepting an elven beauty, right? Facts proved that Su Yi was thinking too much. After feeling emotional, Elder Lasagna didn't continue this topic. Rather, she talked to Su Yi about the Stru Road Viaduct project. Elder Lasagna had suggested to Su Yi before that they could use the elves' strong control over plants. They could use plants to build a roadbed, which would save quite a bit of money for the new flyer. Su Yi considered safety and stability, so after rejecting this suggestion, Elder Lasagna didn't give up. Rather, she really used plants to build a platform in the slight dream forest that went from low to high. This roadbed finally reached the cliff, connecting the kingdom of Ruhr to the principality of Constantine. Elder Lasagna brought Su Yi to this roadbed made of plants with a proud look on her face. How is it, Chairman Su? We only used less than 4 months to finish this roadbed, but the stone roadbed you insisted on using would take at least 3 months to finish. If you had taken my suggestion back then, perhaps this road would have been finished by now. Su Yi looked at the 20-meter-wide road in front of him that had a slight slope that was made of pure plants and was speechless. Although this roadbed was made of plants, the surface had been processed by the elves and was very smooth. Other than looking a bit strange, there was no difference from stepping on a solid road. Su Yi turned to get in the magic sedan and drove onto this roadbed. He felt that there was a certain degree of softness in the ground. Although it affected the speed, it made driving very smooth and there weren't any bumps at all. Compared to this, it was actually much more comfortable than driving on a normal road. After going around it, Sue-yi already approved of this roadbed in his heart. The elves really were the most mysterious and ancient race on the continent. They really did have many strange things. But thinking that this thing was made of plants, Sue-yi still wasn't assured. Elder Lysania, since you have this ability, why didn't you connect it to the top of the cliff earlier? That way it would be easier for you to enter the kingdom of Ruhr. Sui couldn't help asking. Why do we have to enter the kingdom of Ruhr? Elder Lysania asked back. It's the opposite, we don't want other humans to enter this forest. This cliff is the best barrier. Sui gave a shrug, thinking that he had asked a useless question. The Moon Shadow tribe clearly rejected humans from entering the Slight Dream Forest before, but now that their views had changed, there was this change. After thinking about it, Sui continued, How about this, Elder Lysania? We'll keep this roadbed, but we'll also keep building the roadbed we're currently building. I will invest in the Stru Road and split it into two, connecting the two roadbed. That way, we'll have two choices to connect to the kingdom of Ruhr. Elder Lysania frowned slightly. Chairman Su, do you know why I hope you can use my proposal? I know, Sui smiled and nodded, looking left and right, hinting Elder Lysania to go to the side to talk. Elder Lysania shook her head lightly and waved her hand. A light blue curtain fell and enveloped the two of them. All right, with this small spatial isolation spell, others won't be able to see or hear us. Just say what you want to say. Sui looked at the light blue light in amazement, thinking that this thing was clearly a one-sided lens with soundproofing on Earth. He didn't think that there was such a convenient spatial magic. It really opened his eyes. After sighing in admiration, Sui looked back at Elder Lysania and said seriously, I think Elder wants to control this road to the kingdom of Ruhr. If we use your proposal, as long as you want, you can remove this roadbed at any time, which is equivalent to cutting off the road to the kingdom of Ruhr. Am I right? Elder Lysania nodded lightly. Chairman Su, you are indeed a very smart human. That's right, this is my plan. Do you have any objections? Sui smiled and shook his head. I don't have any objections, but I firmly oppose it. You should know very well that this Stru Road is extremely important to the overall strategy of our Chamber of Commerce, so no matter what, I need this road to be under my control. According to your plan, whether this road is connected or not depends on your wishes, then building this road is meaningless to me. It's not as serious as you say. Elder Lysania slowly shook her head. I'm only worried about the extreme situation. It's very rare for such a situation to occur, so you don't have to worry about this problem. This is different. This road to our Chamber of Commerce is as important as the arteries of the human body, so no matter what, I have to control it. Elder Lysania, on this point, there is no room for discussion. Sui said in a deep voice. Whether you are willing or not, I will insist on building another roadbed. Elder Lysania's face sank. Chairman Su, I always thought you were our Moon Shadow tribe's staunchest friend and partner. Now you want to completely fall out with us over this matter? I don't have such thoughts. Sui revealed a smile. But as for controlling this road, I have to obtain it. So this time I came with sincerity. Sincerity? Elder Lysania was still looking at Sui. After dealing with Sui so many times, she was very clear that the sincerity that Sui spoke of was referring to some tangible benefit. Elder Lysania, if you can make concessions on this matter, then I will recruit 1,000 elven warriors from your Moon Shadow tribe into my personal guard. Sui said. Elder Lysania was startled. Letting 1,000 precious elven warriors into Suyi's personal guard, what benefits would that bring to the Moon Shadow tribe? Where was Suyi's sincerity? As if seeing through Elder Lysania's thoughts, Sui gave her a reassuring smile. After these 1,000 elven warriors enter my personal guard, I will provide them with a full set of individual military magic machines for free. I will also allow them to bring them back to the Moon Shadow Tribe when they retire from my personal guard. Hearing this, Elder Lysanya's eyes suddenly lit up. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.